What returned to the demon realm together with it was also the divine spirit mark that Meng Lei had left on it. I did it! Meng Lei could now easily sense the demon realm's presence through the divine spirit mark. After that, he built a devil channel and summoned devils from the demon realm based on Dead Souls Magic's principles. 5th grade imp, a 7th grade underworld ghost, a saint domain-level great devil. He summoned one devil after another. Imps, underworld ghosts, little devils, great devils, ice devils, horn devils, fire devils. Only one outcome awaited these devils, and that was to be sent into the Tower of Time. Like what Dodola had said, devils were the best source of food for fallen angels. When little Cola saw the devils, she reacted like a cat that had just seen a mouse and began to devour them fervently. All the little devils, all the underworld ghosts. In under a day's time, little Cola had devoured almost 100 devils and imps. The aura around her was constantly swelling. She has such a big appetite. As Meng Lei watched little Cola feed, all that was left in him was deep astoundment. A devil was a devil after all. How could normal human children compare to her? Even so, Meng Lei didn't wish to starve little Cola. His divine spirit continued to circle above hell, catching every devil that he could catch. After half a day, the number of devils that Meng Lei had forcibly summoned had reached as many as 100,000. It was only at this point that Meng Lei stopped his summoning. Master, can you let me study devil magic a little, too? Asked Bahamon as he rubbed his hands and gazed at Meng Lei with an expression full of hope, the meaning behind his request self-evident. Meng Lei agreed to it right away. He built a devil channel, upon which Bahamon quickly made a mark in the demon realm with his divine spirit. Then he expressed his sincerest gratitude to Meng Lei for his generosity. A smiling Meng Lei said, "Summon a few more devils for fun when you're free. I have use for them." "Understood, Master," Bahamon quickly replied. "All right, you may return now." "Yes, Master." After sending Bahamon back to the Imperial City, Meng Lei gathered the few half-deities. Bubbles, Klaus, Saija, and Nadia are to leave with me. Meng Lei instructed. Mervin, Pursuer, and the Spider Goddess are to remain underground and spread my faith. Yes, Master. The 6 half-deities bowed in acknowledgement. Although the Spider Goddess was displeased with Meng Lei's orders, the god-slaying spear jab earlier had given her a true understanding of just how strong Meng Lei was. Not daring to challenge his authority anymore, she neither spoke up nor rejected the order, indirectly and silently accepting the order. I hope my faith can spread throughout the entire underground world in a year's time. Meng Lei cast a glance at Mervin, Pursuer, and the Spider Goddess and said, "Don't let me down. We'll definitely live up to your expectations, Master." Mervin and the Pursuer hastily promised. Great. Then, Meng Lei brought the other 4 half-deity subordinates with him and left the underground world. Before he left, Meng Lei also left behind 5 divine tree fruits for Little Gold. With these fruits, Little Gold would be able to step into the Saint Domain realm within a short period. "Master, are we going to the Sunset Ranges next?" asked Bubbles. Meng Lei nodded slightly and replied, "Klaus, your speed is the fastest among everyone. Bring us there." "Yes, Master." Klaus transformed into his true form, a mutated fire dragon, and then he flew toward the Sunset Ranges with the others on his back. As Meng Lei rested on Klaus' back, boredom came over him, and he decided to contact the system. System. Carry out 1,000 limitless pickups. Ding! Assimilation successful. You have obtained a pair of Lucy the Fairies' crystal shoes. Ding! Assimilation successful. You have obtained a divine core. Will you assimilate it? Eh? With a casual flip of his wrist, a silver divine core appeared on Meng Lei's palm. Lightning flashed brilliantly and streaked furiously within the divine core. It was actually a thunder elemental divine core. That's? Upon sensing the divine core's aura, Bubbles, Nadia, Saija, and even Klaus underneath them looked over one by one, looks of disbelief coming over their faces. A divine core. It's actually a divine core. The 4 half-deities' breathing turned quick and ragged. The desire in their eyes openly shone. In particular, Saija the Thunderbolt Queen's eyes brimmed with greed and longing. She was a Thunderbolt Naga whose main field of cultivation was Thunder Elemental laws of nature. So Thunder Elemental divine cores suited her element the best. Were she to assimilate it, she would definitely be able to become a true god. Stop staring at it. I can't give it to you guys for the time being. Meng Lei glanced at them and then he said, "Don't bother thinking about these divine cores while I'm still not yet a true god. Even if you do, I'm not going to give them to you." "Master, you mean?" A great shudder went through the four of them. "Perform well, and you'll get what you deserve, but don't hanker after what you don't." Meng Lei took out the other two divine cores and very casually showed them off with a slight smile. "Divine cores? That's 3 divine cores." The 4 half-deities were green with envy. To think there were actually 3 divine cores on their master. On top of that, by the sound of what he had said, "Don't worry, master. We swear allegiance and devotion to you unto our dying day. We'll strive to the utmost with our lives and spare no effort." The 4 half-deities hastily made their stances clear. "I hope so." Then, Meng Lei's attention returned to the system notifications. "Ding! Assimilation successful. You have obtained Viscount Io's ring." "Ding! Assimilation successful. You have obtained a crystallized divine spirit extract." "A crystallized divine spirit extract." Meng Lei was overjoyed. "Haha! I've actually obtained another crystallized divine spirit extract. I'm so lucky. With this crystallized divine spirit extract, these 1,000 laws of nature origin crystals are simply too well spent. Without any further ado, I'll just assimilate it first." Boom! A moment later, Meng Lei's gaze swept over the stats interface, and he couldn't help but beam. Just as he had hoped for, his divine spirit had reached pinnacle grade after he assimilated the crystallized divine spirit extract. "With this, together with my pinnacle grade half-deity body, I finally stepped into the pinnacle level half-deity realm." Highly satisfied with the rewards he'd gotten from the laws of nature origin crystals, Meng Lei promptly ordered another 1,000 times of limitless pickups. However, it seemed like he had expended all his luck this time. He actually didn't pick up even a single decent item during the 1,000 attempts. Meng Lei wasn't that furious about the outcome, however. This was gambling, after all. Only with losses and gains would things be interesting. Where would the fun be if he were to win all the time? Another 1,000 times. Ding! Assimilation successful. You have obtained an ice field alligator. Ding! Assimilation successful. You have obtained a fusion laws of nature fragment. Will you assimilate it? Yes, assimilate it. It's actually a metal dark fire fusion laws of nature fragment this time. Not bad, not bad. This round wasn't a loss. Meng Lei quickly looked at his stats interface. True enough, his laws of nature comprehension attribute had indeed changed. Laws of nature, wood earth fusion, 100%. Metal dark fusion, 100%. Thunder ice fusion, 100%. Water light fusion, 100%. Metal dark fire fusion, 0.1%. System, how much does it cost to raise my metal dark fire laws of nature assimilation rate? Ding! Raising metal dark fire laws of nature assimilation rate by 1% costs 100,000 laws of nature origin crystals, replied the system coldly. If 100,000 laws of nature origin crystals is required for every 1% raised, then raising it to 100% would mean 10 million laws of nature origin crystals. Meng Lei did a silent calculation. Then he said, I guess I'll just leave it be for now. It's not too late to boost it after I ransack the Sunset Ranges and Golden Archipelago. Ding! Assimilation successful. You have obtained the innate special ability, Absolute Zero. Will you assimilate it? The innate special ability Absolute Zero. Meng Lei instructed. Assimilate it. After completing the assimilation process, Meng Lei couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. Though the innate special ability Absolute Zero was similar to the divine technique Absolute Zero, they weren't completely the same. First of all, it didn't expend any power of divinity. As an innate special ability, usage of the Absolute Zero ability was instinctive to the user, so it didn't require any expenditure of power of divinity. It was simpler, more convenient, and quicker. Next, it was also mightier. Not only could the innate special ability version of Absolute Zero freeze everything in the world, but it could freeze and even shatter spatial dimensions. Simply put, the innate special ability version of Absolute Zero was an enhanced and plus version of the divine technique Absolute Zero. This ability is pretty good. Meng Lei took to the ability very much. In the past, he'd also frequently used the first-class spell Absolute Zero, but evidently, as he, as well as his opponents, became stronger, the first-class spell version of Absolute Zero could no longer meet his needs. Additionally, the divine technique Absolute Zero also required expenditure of power of divinity and wasn't worth the loss. As a result, Meng Lei rarely used Absolute Zero now. But now that he had the innate special ability version of Absolute Zero, he could use it again. Ding! Assimilation successful. You have obtained the unicorn bloodline. Will you assimilate it? No, don't assimilate it. Ding! Assimilation successful. You have obtained a demi-giant's mace. Another 1,000 times. Another 1,000 times. Ding! Assimilation successful. You have obtained a divine core. Will you assimilate it? Another divine core? It's a wind elemental one this time. Not bad. Not bad. I'm keeping it. Ding! Assimilation successful. You have obtained the 100-armed giant bloodline. Will you assimilate it? The 100-armed giant? Meng Lei was mildly taken aback. Is the 100-armed giant also a titan? Wait a moment. I'll have to ask Dodola about it later before I decide whether or not I'd want to assimilate it. Ding! Assimilation successful. You have obtained a fusion laws of nature fragment. Will you assimilate it? Yes, assimilate it. It's an Earthwood Thunder one this time, not bad. Just like that, Meng Lei did item pickups while he traveled leisurely. Klaus traveled at a very high speed. In just 2 hours, they had already arrived at the Sunset Ranges. Heaven's Vault Continent's terrain was high in the west and low in the east. The terrain in the central region's Magical Beast Ridge and the eastern region's Dragon God Empire was relatively flat and level. However, by the time they arrived at the Titan Empire in the western region, all that filled the area were plateaus, and these plateaus were the Titan Plateaus. The Titan Plateau's height above sea level was relatively high, and the vegetation simple. As a result, their resources were also comparatively scarcer. This was the first impression Meng Lei received upon entering the Titan Plateaus. The entire Sunset Ranges was just like a wall that stood in between the Titan Plateaus and the far northern wastelands. Each side presented a different landform. Master, we've reached Sunset Ranges. We've arrived? Let's head to where the chimeras are. Yes, Master. Half an hour later, the group arrived at the chimera's turf. What they hadn't expected, however, was that the entire Chimera clan had already been ransacked and emptied. Every single person in the clan had disappeared. Only the blood all over the ground and signs of fierce battle silently recounted the Chimera's encounter. As for the Chimera Queen and the clan's financial assets, they were also gone. Has someone beat me to it? Meng Lei had a rather unpleasant look on his face. He had come all the way here just for the Chimera Queen's assets. As a half-deity, the Chimera Queen's savings must have been pretty substantial. Meng Lei had been waiting for a windfall to befall him, yet it was all gone now? Search, Meng Lei barked. I'd like to know who's so bold as to take my money for themselves. Yes, Master. Upon sensing Meng Lei's rage, the 4 half-deity subordinates hastily began to search about. For half-deities, launching a full-on search was naturally no joke. A few minutes later, they'd already come up with something. Master, based on the footprints, it's likely people from the Titan Empire that did it. On top of that, their numbers are pretty big. The Titan Empire? How gutsy of them. Dodola explained, but undeniably, the 100-armed giants possess way more fearsome strength, even more powerful defenses, and wilder and more berserk combat power than regular Titan gods. Because the Titan gods have abandoned them, the 100-armed giants regard the Titan gods with extreme hostility and extend the same sentiments to all the gods in the void. Hence, They have aligned themselves with the devils to become the supreme god of the underworld's guards. The supreme god of the underworld? Meng Lei was awfully puzzled. The supreme god of the underworld is one of the greatest existences in the vast universe. He's also one of the rulers of the netherworld, which is one of the two major supreme existential planes, answered Dodola. One of the rulers of the netherworld? Meng Lei's breathing stopped for a moment there. He exclaimed, "The 100-armed giants have actually become his guards? They come from a pretty impressive background, then." "Of course." Dodola nodded lightly. Meng Lei asked, "What's up with the Titan gods, though? Are there also Titans outside of Heaven's Vault continent?" "That's not the right way to put it, because the Titans in Heaven's Vault continent are just the Titan gods' descendants. They aren't pure Titan gods," Dodola said dispassionately. "Pure-blooded Titan gods are 1,000,000 feet tall and are capable of ripping true gods apart. In no way are they inferior to the fallen angels of the demon realm." "Are the Titan gods actually that savage?" Meng Lei swallowed as he remarked. "Going by what you've said, the Titans on Heaven's Vault continent are no different from babies that haven't grown up." No, they can't even be considered babies. That goes without saying. The Titan gods' descendants are scattered all over the vast universe. Can the Titans on Heaven's Vault continent even be considered Titans? Dodola scoffed. In truth, the best habitats for higher races like the Titan gods and the fallen angels are actually high-end existential planes, because they'll only regress if they stay on material planes. "I understand now." Meng Lei nodded lightly. After chatting with Dodola for a while more, he exited the Tower of Time. "Where are we now?" At his question, Bubbles bowed and replied, "Master, we've just passed through one of the Titan Empire's 12 pillar nations, the Great Earth Pillar Nation. We're about to enter the territory directly under the Titan Empire's jurisdiction." His voice was shaking somewhat. The Titan Empire had once been a country that he'd loved with all his heart, yet he'd been labeled a traitor and a renegade. Since then, his homeland had become a forbidden zone to him, and he'd never ever returned. Besides, he couldn't. In the twinkling of an eye, almost 10,000 years had passed. But today he was finally going to be back. Bubbles held extremely complex feelings toward this. Agitated, apprehensive, furious. It seemed like they were all present, yet not entirely so either. In any case, it was a very complicated feeling. Meng Lei nodded slightly. Then, he said, "Continue to search for the Chimera's tracks and check who among the Titan Empire the culprits are." "Yes, Master." Although the Titan Empire was made up of high-rise plateaus, the terrain was fairly level. It was almost all endless plains and fields, with people mainly doing animal husbandry. Packs of iron-horned oxes, horned horse elephants that could be seen everywhere, spotted iron-hoofed goats all over the fields and mountains. The ones in charge of shepherding them were all humans and beast people. They lived in tents and shepherded the livestock, laboring away painstakingly. On the contrary, many big and tall demi-giant nobles rode on large, hulking beasts and raced about in the fields, having the time of their lives. Meng Lei shook his head lightly and commented, "The humans in the Titan Empire don't have it that great, either. Master, you may not know this, but humans are also classified as fourth-class beings in the Titan Empire," Bubbles explained. "In first class are the pure-blooded Titans, while the demi-Titans are second class and other nobles third class. Normal humans and beast people are fourth class, so they are no different from their counterparts in the Dragon God Empire." "Fourth class?" Then, Meng Lei asked, "How's the search going? Where have the chimeras been captured and brought to?" "Based on the tracks, Master, the chimeras have likely been brought to the Titan Colossal City." "The Titan Colossal City? Let's go there, then," replied Meng Lei. "Yes, Master." An hour later, they arrived at the Titan Empire's capital, the Titan Colossal City. Shrouded in clouds and mists all year round, the city, which sat atop the divine Titan Mountain, was situated the highest above sea level among all the cities in Heaven's Vault continent. On average, it was over 10,000 meters above sea level. By right, considering how high they were above sea level, the air there must be very thin, hence making it very difficult for normal people to survive there. Yet the truth was that the weather in the city was nice and pleasant and the environment beautiful, with extremely rich magic elements in the surroundings. Why was that? As it turned out, it was because the Titan colossal city was enveloped in a gigantic magic barrier. The magic barrier absorbed an unending stream of magic elements in the surroundings and supplemented the city with them. Master, that's the Titan colossal city beneath us. Bubbles was rather worked up. Do we fight our way right in or? No, this is my first time coming to this city. How can I not take a good look around? Meng Lei shook his head and said, after all, this is the city that's hailed as Heaven's Vault Continent's most majestic, most magnificent and grandest city, as Master commands. Bubbles was rather disappointed. Let's go down. Perched high on the summit, the Titan colossal city was as if an ancient fort. The city walls were thick, heavy, and aged, with too many traces left behind by time on them. A team of 10 meters tall, silver armor-clad demi-giant guards with iron spears in their hands surveyed the passing crowds with sharp, keen eyes. When Meng Lei and the others came over, they allowed them all to pass, as though they hadn't noticed them at all. Upon entering the city, what greeted them was architecture that was all made out of stone. Towers built out of layered stones, bridges constructed from boulders, taverns, shops. The place was bold and imposing, rough and magnificent. It was unlike the Dragon God Empire's architectural style, yet there was a different kind of bold and rough beauty to it. People went to and fro in the wide, spacious streets. 50% of them were humans and 40% of them beast people, with demi-giants making up less than 10%. As for the Titans, there wasn't even a single one. This was the most direct reflection of their reproduction rates. Since the Titans were the weakest, their numbers were naturally the smallest as well. Why do these beast people look like they're leading very comfortable lives when the Titan Empire and the Beast People Empire are constantly warring? The beast people going to and fro in the streets looked happy and cheerful, unlike the tragic state that Meng Lei had imagined them to be in. Weren't they captives and slaves? There's more to it than meets the eye, Master. Bubbles explained. The beast people who live here are basically all refugees who couldn't live on in the Beast People Empire. Beast people are diligent, honest, and hardworking. They can do many things that Titans cannot. As a result, they are fairly welcomed in the Titan Empire and lead much better lives than what they do in the Beast People Empire. Bubbles explained. Their peaceful, comfortable lives have allowed these beast people to cultivate a sense of belonging to the Titan Empire that's much stronger than what they have for the Beast People Empire. I see. Meng Lei was enlightened. Sir, our store has brought in a new batch of chrysanthemum sky pigs. They are fresh and tasty with a smooth and tender texture. Come on in and have a bite. First come, first served. You snooze, you lose. In front of a restaurant, a sexily dressed foxwoman waitress called out to passers-by as she solicited customers. Her voice was sweet, pleasant, and intoxicating. Chrysanthemum sky pigs? Something occurred to Meng Lei, and he said, let's go. I'll treat you guys to a meal. A meal. The 4 half-deities were taken aback. Nevertheless, they still followed Meng Lei and entered the restaurant. With a menu in her hands, an adorable and charming Catwoman waitress with a sweet smile asked, esteemed guests, what would you like to eat? Chrysanthemum sky pigs. Meng Lei said, I'd like 100 roasted pigs. 1 to 100 pigs? Startled, the Catwoman waitress thought she had misheard, and she asked, esteemed guests, are you sure you want 100 roasted chrysanthemum sky pigs? You didn't mishear me. 100 pigs it is. Meng Lei chuckled and said, go ahead and prepare them. We can finish them. All right? It was only after the astounded Catwoman waitress left that a smiling Meng Lei said, chrysanthemum sky pigs are good stuff. One is worth quite a few gold coins. Have more later. Don't stand on ceremony with me. Yes, master. The 4 subordinates' lip corners spasmed as they responded, treating us to chrysanthemum sky pigs, which cost only a few gold coins. In your opinions, who do you think will win in the showdown before the gods this time? I think the Blue Frost King has a chance of winning. As of now, he has already won 19 successive matches without a single loss. He's definitely the #1 candidate for the Child of God. The Blue Frost King? No offense, but had his previous opponents not been that lousy, would he be able to maintain his current battle records? So you don't think he's up to it? Why don't you do it if you think you can? Then, hey, let's keep it to simple chatting. Don't you start a fight. I won't. In that case, why don't you tell me who you think can claim the final victory? In my opinion, I think Prince Poserei's chances of victory are the highest. Think about it, 8 out of 10 Child of God candidates during the last 10 years were from the imperial royal family, while the kingdoms only took 2 places. It'll definitely be no exception this year, either. The Child of God selection looks only at one's combat prowess, not their backgrounds. So, you don't believe me? Wait and see, then. What are they talking about? Asked a puzzled Meng Lei as he gestured at the 2 people seated at another table a short distance away. Probably the showdown before the gods. A smiling Bubbles explained, the showdown before the gods is a grand affair held once every 10 years in the Titan Empire. All young talents and heroes under the age of 35 are eligible to take part in it. The victor may then enter the Holy Temple and receive the Titan spiritual god's blessings to become the new Child of God, thereby leaping high beyond their current positions into a bright future. I see. Enlightened, Meng Lei remarked. That's somewhat similar to the Dragon God Empire's exchange competition. The Titan Empire's showdown before the gods is much grander than the Dragon God Empire's exchange competition. A smiling Bubbles said, it's said that it has already started 50,000 years ago after the Titan spiritual god achieved godhood. On top of that, the Titan spiritual god would also personally give his blessings. All those that receive his blessings will be able to step into the half-deity stage within 100 years. 100 years? Become a half-deity? Astonished, Meng Lei asked, that's not quite possible, is it? If that's really the case, the Titan Empire would have been overflowing with half-deities a long time ago. What's left for the other 3 empires? Then, there's more to it than meets the eye, Master, Bubbles said with a wry smile. All the children of God who received the Titan spiritual god's blessings would be led away by him after they achieve half-deification. Led away by him? Meng Lei was even more puzzled now. Yes, they would leave, Bubbles said leisurely. No one knows why they are led away, but all the children of God who were blessed indeed were able to become half-deities within 100 years. Half-deification within 100 years. Meng Lei was astounded. That's mass manufacturing of half-deities. The Titan spiritual god certainly comes up with much greater means than the Dragon God. There's no comparison between the 2 at all right? Dodola's voice suddenly rang out in Meng Lei's mind. The Titan spiritual god controls the power of faith domains in almost 100 material planes around us. Heaven's vault continent is just one among many. How can the Dragon God compare to him? Thus, Meng Lei decided to consult Dodola. He said, tell me about the 4 great true gods, Dodola, especially the Titan spiritual god, the beast god, and the fairy goddess. Highly satisfied with Meng Lei's attitude, Dodola immediately broke into a smile and said, among the 4 true gods of heaven's vault continent, the Dragon God is the most unbearable to behold. He owns only 2 divine incarnations and has barely reached the level of an intermediate deity. On top of that, he only has heaven's vault continent as a power of faith domain, let alone anyone to back him up. Dodola was full of contempt for him. It said, among the 4 great true gods, he's the weakest in terms of combat prowess, owns the least territories, and is also the least influential. He's a total piece of trash. Is the Dragon God that unbearable to behold? Meng Lei was somewhat lost for words. The spider goddess had made the Dragon God out to be an extremely fearsome character. Yet, in Dodola's eyes, he was practically worse than a piece of trash. Oh, why was there such a huge gap between one and another? Duh! Dodola side-eyed Meng Lei. Meng Lei then asked, what about the Titan spiritual god? Let's talk about the beast god first. The second weakest among the 4 great true gods. He's also an intermediate deity. With a shake of its head, Dodola said. However, the beast god has been a true god for a much longer time than the dragon god. Additionally, he also rules over the power of faith domains in 7 to 8 existential planes. After such a long passage of time and under the nourishment of an endless stream of power of faith, the beast god has come to own 5 divine incarnations and is considered the most top-notch intermediate deity. Somewhat dumbstruck, Menglei asked, "In other words, the beast god needs only to progress another step further and assimilate 2 more types of laws of nature, and he'll be able to ascend to a higher deity?" "That's right." With a nod, Dodola added, "Although this one last step is extremely difficult to achieve and may daunt the beast god for a billion years, he is indeed only a step away from becoming a higher deity. Moreover," Dodola said, "the beast god has joined the all-beast true god alliance. Even though the true gods in the alliance are all unsavory characters, they nonetheless still count as a force. With the all-beast true god alliance backing him up, the beast god is much bigger of a force to reckon with than the dragon god. You'd best think twice before you mess with him." "The all-beast true god alliance," Menglei mumbled. "Do true gods also need to find strength in numbers?" "Of course. Absolutely. It's a must," Dodola said affirmatively. "The void is far more dangerous than what you can imagine. Having connections to back you up is something that's absolutely essential. You'll understand once you leave Heaven's Vault continent and enter the void." Menglei curled his lip disdainfully before he urged, "Go on." As for the third true god, the Titan spiritual god, even though he only owns 1 divine incarnation, he has awakened the Titan god bloodline. This is enough for him to rival pinnacle-level intermediate deities. Dodola went on. Actually, this is also the case for the vast majority of Titan gods. They do not cultivate laws of nature but only cultivate their divine bodies. However, their combat strength is incomparably and domineeringly powerful. Menglei, who had now gotten a better understanding, then asked in puzzlement, "What did you mean just now when you mentioned that the Titan spiritual god owns power of faith domains in almost 100 material planes?" 20,000 years ago, the Titan spiritual god gained acknowledgement from the Theodore Titan gods of the Thunderbolt divine realm, and was classified as a priority target of grooming. Dodola explained, "The power of faith domains in those 100 material planes are grooming resources that the Theodore Titan gods had bestowed upon him. For the sake of controlling those material planes, the Titan spiritual god spared no costs and went as far as to bestow substantial rewards, select children of God, and bring them over to those planes." "The Theodore Titan gods?" A look of puzzlement came over Menglei's features. The Titan gods are a strong and powerful race whose traces can be found all over the vast universe. They have offshoots and blood descendants in many existential planes. Dodola said, "Among which the Thunderbolt Divine Realm's Theodore Titan gods are an extremely powerful Titan god clan. They are one of the top major clans of Thunderbolt Divine Realm and control innumerable normal existential planes. To bestow the Titan spiritual god with 100 material planes in one go, the Theodore Titan gods sure are generous." Menglei, who was having a case of sour grapes, said, "In comparison, the dragon god is much more pitiful." Dodola shook its head and chuckled. "As they say, big trees provide great shade one. No matter where you go, this is a truth that will never change." "That's true. No matter where you go, you'll always need to pit your background against another's." Menglei shook his head. Then he asked, "What about the fairy goddess?" "The fairy goddess achieved true godhood the earliest among the 4. She's also the most ancient, the strongest, and the one with the most formidable background." At the mention of the fairy goddess, Dodola became much more serious. It said, "The era during which she became a true god can be traced back to 500,000 years ago. On top of that, she also has a vast number of worshippers. She generally has worshippers in every existential plane that contains the fairy's presence." Menglei asked, "What about her combat prowess?" "The fairy goddess was already a higher deity 200,000 years ago. After such a long passage of time, no matter how bad it gets, she'd also have assimilated 2 to 3 types of laws of nature by now." Dodola sighed. "After all, she has a wood-origin divine body, so her cultivation speed is astonishingly fast from the start. Not to mention that she also has the support of the natural goddesses system behind her. Would origin divine body? The natural goddesses system. Meng Lei was rather puzzled. A wood origin divine body is a type of origin divine body. Dodola explained. Origin divine bodies are one of the most powerful types of divine bodies. As they are compatible with laws of nature origins, not only do the owners of such bodies have an astonishingly fast cultivation speed, but they are also incomparably strong. On top of that, they also come with all kinds of incredible innate special abilities. Origin divine bodies, Meng Lei murmured. There are many types of origin divine bodies. The 10 basic laws of nature correspond with 10 different types of origin divine bodies. The fairy goddess divine body is exactly a wood origin one. Dodola said, as for the natural goddesses system, they are one of the most influential forces of the void, and are made up of multiple chief gods, tens of thousands of higher deities, and innumerable intermediate deities. The fairy goddess has a wood origin divine body, and is one of the natural goddesses system's priority targets of grooming. Thus, there is hope for her to attain great perfection. Meng Lei was rather astounded. The fairy goddess actually comes from an even more impressive background than the Titan spiritual god. Of course, Dodola nodded lightly, disregarding the natural goddesses system behind the fairy goddess. Just her own combat prowess alone is already absolutely fearsome. To her, squashing you dead is no different from squashing an ant dead. That is certainly so. Meng Lei did not deny that. Of course, you're not that bad, either. Thinking that Meng Lei had suffered a blow because of what it had said, a smiling Dodola comforted him. It said, not only do you have the god-slaying rat bloodline, but you've also comprehended 10 types of laws of nature. As long as you cultivate according to my plan, your future achievements will definitely be above the fairy goddess. Your plan? Startled, Meng Lei asked, what plan? The plan to obtain the Dragon God Empire's faith, and cultivate your divine spirit to half-deity pinnacle level, and then split your divine spirit and light up your divine fire to become a true god, of course. Dodola side-eyed Meng Lei and said, obtaining the Dragon God Empire's faith is the first trial that that the great god of time has given you. Surely you haven't forgotten about that, kid. Rather dissatisfied, Dodola said, you absolutely mustn't be careless when it comes to matters about faith. You have to obtain the Dragon God Empire's faith. 3 years shouldn't be too short a period, right? I haven't forgotten. It's just that. Meng Lei shook his head. Then, he asked, Dodola, do I absolutely have to split my divine spirit? Can't I just assimilate the laws of nature first and then light up the divine fire to achieve deification later? Don't even think about it. That's impossible. Dodola chastised him. What do you see laws of nature assimilation as? Playing house? If it were that easy, then why didn't the dragon god assimilate them? Why didn't the beast god assimilate them? Why didn't the many true gods in the vast universe assimilate them? That's because they don't have the system. Meng Lei dissed Dodola inwardly. Then he shrugged and said, would you believe me if I tell you that I've already assimilated the laws of nature? And on top of that, it isn't just one type? Yeah, right, as if I will. Dodola shook its head resolutely. I'd have a screw loose in my head if I were to believe you, and more than one type at that. Are you trying to kid a 3-year-old here? Why won't you believe me? Meng Lei raised his arm slightly. A bright blue thread shot out of his fingertip and weaved together to form a bright blue cage that gave off torrential power of laws of nature. What's that? Dodola was slightly taken aback. Then, a look of disbelief came over its countenance. That's F-fusion laws of nature. W-water and light fusion laws of nature. That's right. It's water-light fusion laws of nature. Meng Lei withdrew the bright blue cage and created a pink one. Once again, Dodola was astounded. That's thunder-ice fusion laws of nature. That's right. Meng Lei nodded again. Next up was a bright brown thread. Metal dark fire fusion laws of nature. Dodola was completely dumbfounded. A fusion of 3 types of laws of nature. Then, Meng Lei did another change. Earth, wood, thunder. Dodola was on the brink of insanity. Oh my God! What exactly is going on? Why is this happening? How exactly did you manage to do that? From the string of 3 questions in a row, one could see the extent of Dodola's astoundment at the moment. Nothing is impossible in this world. Meng Lei shook his head lightly. He said, as of now, I've completely assimilated wood-earth, metal-dark, water-light, and thunder-ice laws of nature, while I've also started to assimilate earth-wood-thunder and metal-dark-fire laws of nature. It's just a shame that I can't bear to part with the money. Otherwise, I wouldn't have any problem completely assimilating earth-wood-thunder and metal-dark-fire laws of nature. 2. Earth-wood-thunder, metal-dark-fire? Dodola stared at Meng Lei as though it was staring at a freak. Only after a substantially long while did it finally regain its senses, and it couldn't help but exclaim, "This isn't right. Why have you begun to develop in the direction of life laws of nature and destruction laws of nature? That won't do. Absolutely not. Life laws of nature? Destruction laws of nature." Meng Lei looked stupefied. At this point, I won't leave you hanging anymore. You're simply too worrisome. If you end up being led astray someday, I won't even be in time to cry. Dodola took a deep breath and said, "Listen up now. What I'm about to say is very important to you. You must keep it firmly in mind." Meng Lei nodded heavily. "You should know that there are a total of 10 basic laws of nature in the universe, and that on top of them are also many other supreme forms of laws of nature." Meng Lei made a sound of acknowledgement. "Don't ask me for a concrete number of how many types of supreme laws of nature there are, because I don't know either. The requirements for cultivating supreme laws of nature are very demanding, and on top of that, they are also extremely hard to comprehend." Dodola explained, "As of now, no one has ever comprehended all of the supreme laws of nature. As a result, no one knows just how many types of supreme laws of nature there are in total in the universe, even till today." Meng Lei's brows drew together slightly before he then understood why. This was actually very understandable. Just like how everyone knew that there were a total of 7 continents on Earth. But before the Americas, Australia, and Antarctica were discovered, who would have been able to know beforehand that there were a total of 7 continents on Earth? Evidently, the same logic applied to the supreme laws of nature, too. A type would be discovered when 1 was comprehended, and 2 would be discovered when 2 were comprehended. Before someone comprehended them, who would know of their existence? As of now, there are a total of 5 supreme laws of nature that have been discovered: destruction, life, spatial, death, and time laws of nature. With great pride, Dodola said, "Among which, the great god of time was the first to discover time laws of nature, albeit just the tip of the iceberg, even for someone like him. Destruction laws of nature, life laws of nature, death laws of nature, spatial laws of nature, time laws of nature. So, these are 5 great supreme laws of nature that have been discovered?" Meng Lei murmured to himself, "How does one comprehend the supreme laws of nature?" "Very simple. You just need to assimilate 5 types of laws of nature." Dodola said very affirmatively. When 5 types of laws of nature are integrated and fused into one, there'll be a chance that an all-new supreme law of nature will be created. Of course, this is just a possibility because, with 10 basic types of laws of nature around, a fusion of any 5 random types would mean a total of 252 different combinations. However, there are currently only 5 combinations that can truly create supreme laws of nature. Dodola explained, and these 5 fusion combinations are also the cultivation methods for the 5 supreme laws of nature that have been discovered. As for the other 247 combinations, they have either not yet been attempted or were unable to create supreme laws of nature, among which cultivation methods for destruction, life, death, and spatial laws of nature are widely known. There is no lack of great perfection true gods who have mastered these 4 types of laws of nature in the vast universe. However, no one has been able to master time laws of nature even as of now, because I'm the only one who knows the fusion combination for time laws of nature ever since the god of time's death. Meng Lei gazed at Dodola with an earnest and fervent look in his eyes. A crazy idea had suddenly come to him. Would it be possible for him to master all 5 supreme laws of nature? Theoretically, this was fairly possible. After all, he had a cheating device. What are you thinking of doing? A frightened Dodola asked. Surely you aren't thinking of comprehending all 5 supreme laws of nature? Why not? Meng Lei licked his lips. After all, it's just a matter of assimilating 5 types of fused laws of nature, that's all. It's not something very difficult for me. Not very difficult? Dodola felt as if it had just heard the most arrogant and egotistical declaration in the vast universe, and it couldn't help but become furious. Meng Lei, you're too egotistical. You have no idea what assimilating 5 types of laws of nature means at all. Great perfection. Do you know how few great perfection true gods there are in the vast universe? I'll tell you, they're rarer than even the chief gods who are hailed as the gods above the gods. In the vast universe, even after a long passage of billions of years, there are only pitifully few great perfection true gods even till today. Just how rare are they? Fewer than even chief gods? That's certainly extremely rare. Meng Lei didn't refute Dodola. Do you know how difficult it is to assimilate 5 types of laws of nature? We'll disregard everyone else and just focus on one of the 4 great true gods of heaven's vault continent, the fairy goddess. Dodola barked. Not only does she have a wood-origin divine body and vast numbers of worshippers, but she also has the natural goddess's system's support backing her up. Yet, even after 200,000 years, she has only assimilated 3 types of basic laws of nature at best. Imagine for yourself just how difficult and arduous it is to assimilate 5 types. It's certainly very difficult. Meng Lei did not deny that either. Meng Lei, I know you're very monstrous of a cultivator, and also know that you have great confidence in yourself. Dodola gazed at Meng Lei sternly as it said, but I must tell you that it is really too difficult for one to attain great perfection. It's a billion times more difficult than even mortals ascending to heaven. So, you'd best just give up on unrealistic thoughts like that while it's still early. It's impossible. What you need to do now is to assimilate 5 types of laws of nature: thunder, fire, wind, light, and dark, and then master time laws of nature after that. Okay? This time, Meng Lei shook his head. Dodola, I completely understand what you're saying. I'll definitely master time laws of nature and inherit the god of time's legacy. Then he changed the course of the conversation and said, but I won't give up on the other 4, destruction, life, spatial, and death, types of supreme laws of nature, either. In fact, I'm even thinking of fusing all 10 types of laws of nature into one. I'd like to see just what exactly would happen when all 10 basic laws of nature are fused into one. You're out of your mind. You're completely out of your mind. Dodola was rather hysterical. Meng Lei, you'll destroy yourself if you do that. All right, that's enough. I know what I should do. Don't try to persuade me otherwise anymore. Meng Lei waved Dodola off and said, hurry and tell me the fusion combinations for the other 4 types of supreme laws of nature, so that I have something to go by, lest I waste my money for nothing. Are you really going to do that? Dodola's eyes bore into Meng Lei. That's right.
Meng Lei nodded heavily, broken no refusal.
I can tell you the fusion combinations for the other 4 types of supreme laws of nature, but you have to promise me that you'll definitely comprehend time laws of nature and inherit the god of time's legacy. This is the limit of my threshold. Dodola's countenance was stern and serious as it spoke. Would I pass time laws of nature up when they're so powerful? Meng Lei couldn't help but smile, and he added, my ambition is way greater than what you can imagine. Dodola didn't take his words seriously. What was the use of having great ambitions? Nevertheless, it still imparted the other 4 supreme laws of nature's fusion combinations to Meng Lei in the end. Earth, wood, thunder, metal, dark, fire. Meng Lei was stunned. Now that you put it that way, it does really seem like I'm moving in the direction of destruction laws of nature and life laws of nature? Duh, of course. Dodola was terribly displeased. Based on where your assimilation progress is heading, it's very likely that you'll comprehend destruction laws of nature and life laws of nature first. What are you going to do about time laws of nature, then? Don't worry. I won't leave out any of them. Meng Lei licked his lips as he said, I'll split my divine spirit when I've comprehended a type of supreme laws of nature. I'll just get myself a great perfection divine incarnation first. Great perfection, divine incarnation. Dodola was mildly dumbfounded. By first comprehending a type of supreme laws of nature, and then using it as a foundation to light up one's divine fire and manifest one's divine core. Theoretically, this indeed could allow one to attain great perfection. After all, wasn't a great perfection true God exactly one that had fused 5 types of laws of nature into one, going directly from a half-deity to a great perfection true God? Could one really attain great perfection like that? Dodola had begun to somewhat question its own life. When I've comprehended all 5 types of supreme laws of nature, I shall own 5 great perfection divine incarnations. I'll probably frighten everyone to death if I release them all during battle. Meng Lei was beside himself at the thought, to the extent that he was even drooling. Waha! Just the thought alone is enough to motivate me. 5 great perfection divine incarnations. Dodola swallowed hard. Forget it. It's ultimately still too early to think about all these now. I'd better just focus on money-making instead. Then Meng Lei left the Tower of Time. Money-making? Dodola was utterly confused. What does assimilating laws of nature have anything to do with money-making? Chrysanthemum sky pigs were just first-grade magical beasts, so they naturally didn't taste that spectacular. In spite of that, Meng Lei's 4 half-deity subordinates nevertheless still enjoyed them a great deal. It was as if they were eating celestial birds. Meng Lei also ate leisurely. However, he also spread his divine cognition into the city and enveloped the whole Titan colossal city within as he searched for the Titan Empire's treasury. It's not here? Looks like the Titan Empire has also stored their treasures in a half-plane, just like the Dragon God Empire. Should I capture the Titan Emperor and ask him about it? All right, I must. Meng Lei secretly made up his mind. Then he said, have more of the food. We're going to do something big later. So all of you had better eat up and drink up to recharge your energy. Do something big? Bubbles' eyes lit up. Master, are you thinking of... Cut the crap. Eat first. Meng Lei glared at him. You'll find out when the time comes. Master, actually it's... All right, even if we don't eat, Bubbles said carefully. We're half-deities, so this stuff doesn't really fill our stomachs that much. That tri-cannon pig of yours, on the other hand... Meng Lei side-eyed Bubbles. What? Are you being picky? No. After finishing all 100 chrysanthemum sky pigs, Meng Lei and the others left the restaurant and headed straight for the Divine Titan Temple. According to the news they'd gotten, the Titan Emperor, members of royalty, nobles, and many Saint Domain experts had all gathered at the Divine Titan Temple to watch the showdown before the gods. If Meng Lei wanted to look for the Titan Emperor, then he'd have to head to the temple. The Divine Titan Temple is located on the Titan Spiritual Peak, the highest summit of the Divine Titan Mountain, at a height of 18,888 meters above sea level. It's the tallest summit in all of Heaven's Vault continent. The Divine Titan Temple worships the Titan spiritual god. Thus, the decennial showdown before the gods is held right in front of the Titan spiritual god's divine statue. They moved extremely quickly. Before long, they arrived at the Titan spiritual peak. Hailed as the tallest peak in Heaven's Vault continent, the Titan spiritual peak was shrouded in clouds. It rose thousands of feet sheer, tall, straight, and precipitous. Only a single 3-meter-wide staircase path stretched all the way from the foot of the mountain and disappeared into the boundless clouds. This was the one and only path leading to the summit. Let's go up. Meng Lei rose into the air and took the lead, flying headfirst toward the summit. The 4 half-deities didn't dare to tarry and followed closely behind him. Passing through layers of clouds, they could hear intense clashes even from a great distance away. When they reached the summit, a gigantic square entered their sights. Extremely flat and level, the square spanned several miles in breadth and length and looked as if it had been forcibly carved out. In the center stood a 10,000 feet tall statue. He held a hammer in his hand and stood atop a thunderbolt. His muscles intertwined, and his eyes were bright and sharp. He glowered fiercely, his countenance full of imposing sternness. It was exactly a statue of the Titan spiritual god. At a level like Menglei's, one could clearly see that the 10,000 feet tall statue was completely enveloped by milky white power of faith. The light of faith given off by the power of faith fully isolated and shut out the summit's chilliness, giving people a peaceful and tranquil feeling as if they were basking in the spring breeze. What rich laws of nature power! Bubbles and the other 3 half-deities couldn't help but exclaim softly, their eyes brimming with white-hot longing. They also had a fair number of worshippers in the underground world, but once compared to the Titan spiritual god, they were no different from country bumpkins with a bit of money to their name. When one's worshippers were low in numbers and weak in strength, the amount of power of faith they could provide would naturally be pitifully little, too. Moreover, they had refined every little bit that they had received. When had they ever seen such rich and abundant power of faith? Just how many power of divinity droplets would he have to refine in order to achieve something like that? The 4 half-deities swallowed hard, wishing they could rush forward and take apart the statue and split the power of faith among themselves. Let's go over and take a look. Menglei took the lead and walked over to the statue to see a gigantic arena erected in front of it. 2 enormous figures were currently clashing against each other in the arena. Spectators filled the area around the arena. There were demi-giants more than a dozen meters tall, beast people Saint Domains with animal heads and human bodies, as well as human experts. At that moment, everyone was cheering as they watched the match in the arena. The 2 people currently engaged in the fierce battle were both 50 meters tall. Both were pure-blooded titans. One had a head of silver hair, frost-like skin, and iceberg-like muscles. He was one of the 12 titans, the Frost Titan. The other was pitch-black throughout with bulging muscles and looked just like jet-black charcoal. He was also one of the 12 titans, the Dark Titan. Both titans were Saint Domains, and they were respectively skilled at ice elemental magic and dark elemental magic. Yet they were both fighting head-on and landing solid punches on each other. Klaus asked softly, "Bubbles, is that Dark Titan your descendant?" "No, he isn't." Bubbles shook his head. "Pure-blooded Dark Titans have long since become extinct after I came into the world. That guy is likely a demi-Dark Titan descendant whose bloodline has fully awakened." "I see." Klaus nodded lightly. Then he asked, "Do you think he can win?" "He'll lose for sure." Bubbles shook his head. "That Frost Titan is more skilled than him. He's just playing around with him." The truth was just like what Bubbles had said. After making fun of him for a while, the Frost Titan finally unleashed his ultimate attack and defeated the Dark Titan with just a single move. "The winner is Barum, the Blue Frost King." The host announced the battle outcome loudly. Thunderous applause filled the venue as cheers rumbled like thunder. As expected of Barum, the Blue Frost King. That's 27 consecutive victories now. Becoming the child of God is looking promising for him. For him to possess such strength at just the age of 21, Barum's talent truly tops the world. Tops the world? Have you forgotten that guy in the Dragon God Empire? That's the top cultivator in Heaven's Vault continent history. Compared to him, Barum is far too inferior. That guy isn't human. He's the reincarnation of an evil deity. In his eyes were vague signs of thunderbolts flashing brightly. Muscles bulged all over his body like rocks, and every blood vessel of his was as thick as a rope. Powerful, awe-inspiring, domineering. He was the master of the Titan Empire himself, the Titan Plateau's ruler, and one of the 4 great emperors of Heaven's Vault continent, the Thunder Titan Emperor. Seated to the left of the Thunder Titan Emperor was a beautiful and sensual female Thunder Titan. Her chest muscles were bigger than even taxis, and her long legs even longer than poplar trees. She was the Titan Empress herself. To the Thunder Titan Emperor's right was a skinny, craggy elderly Titan with a head full of white hair. He supported himself with a walking stick, shaking and trembling as he did so. Added to this how his teeth were all gone. He was the picture of someone who already had 1 foot in the grave. "High Priest, how do you find that young man?" The the smiling Thunder Titan Emperor asked as he gestured to Barum, the Blue Frost King in the arena. That little fellow's pretty good. A look of approval appeared on the countenance of the Divine Temple's High Priest. With a somewhat hoarse voice, he said, "To reach the pinnacle of Saint Domain at the age of 21. He's more outstanding than all the previous children of God. He definitely takes the top spot in the history of Heaven's Vault continent." Top spot in history. The Thunder Titan Emperor's countenance became rather awkward. Then, he said, had that guy not existed, Barum would certainly have been able to live up to the title of the top in the continent's history. That guy. The Divine Temple's High Priest was rather puzzled. He asked, "Your Majesty, are there little fellows who are even more outstanding than Barum in the other 3 empires?" High Priest, you're in the Divine Temple all year round and rarely pay much attention to matters of the secular world. So you're not aware that a monster has recently emerged from the Dragon God Empire in the east. In a faraway tone, the Thunder Titan Emperor said, "At the age of 16, he has stepped into the half-deity stage, killed the Dragon God Empire's emperor, wiped out the half-deities on Dragon Island, and seized Dragon God Empire for himself. He can be said to be a peerless monster. To think such a person exists." A look of astonishment came over the greatly shocked High Priest's countenance. How can typical geniuses be that big of a monster? Might a freak like that be the reincarnation of an evil deity? This person's actions are cruel and ruthless. He shows no respect for the law, and his perverse ways are 10,000 times more wicked and evil than the devils and demons in the abyss of hell. The Thunder Titan Emperor snorted furiously. Apart from being an evil deity reincarnate, there are no other possibilities. An evil deity reincarnate. The old High Priest's brows drew together tightly. Should that really be the case, then the continent will probably fall into discord again soon. The Thunder Titan Emperor quickly asked, "Hence, I'd like to consult the High Priest on something. Has the great Titan spiritual god issued any holy decree to provide us with a directive?" To be honest, Meng Lei's deeds in the Dragon God Empire had indeed frightened the Thunder Titan Emperor. What else was beyond Meng Lei when he could kill even the Dragon Emperor and slaughter even the Dragon Island half-deities? Should he make his way into the Titan Empire, who would be able to stop him? As the ruler of the Titan Empire, the Thunder Titan Emperor had to consider the possibility. The Titan spiritual god hasn't issued any holy decrees recently. Your Majesty needn't worry excessively, however. The Dragon God Empire is the Dragon God Empire. A shrewd glint flashed in the old High Priest's eyes as he said, "While the Titan Empire is the Titan Empire. If that monster dares to step into the Titan Empire, I'll definitely deal him such a crushing defeat that he won't even be going back. With the High Priest's promise, I can rest assured." The Thunder Titan Emperor breathed a small sigh of relief. Like the Dragon God Empire, the Titan Empire's half-deity powerhouses were all living in seclusion within the Divine Titan Temple. Frankly speaking, however, even the Thunder Titan Emperor wasn't very certain just how many half-deities there were in concrete or how strong they were. During the last 20,000 years, the great Titan spiritual god had led away children of God and geniuses so wantonly that it had reached an insane level. In fact, he didn't even spare half-deities. Therefore, even the Thunder Titan Emperor had no real idea just how many half-deities there were exactly left protecting the Empire in the Divine Titan Temple. Thus, he really was afraid that Meng Lei would invade the Empire. But now that he had the High Priest's promise, the Thunder Titan Emperor's worries were significantly assuaged. The host's voice rang out at this point. "Next, we'll invite the very last challenger up onto the arena." Whoosh! A bolt of lightning landed on the arena, revealing a figure. It was actually a strong and muscular, 300 feet tall Titan with electric currents circling around him. "Prince Posray! Prince Posray! Prince Posray!" The audience erupted into thunderous cheers as they shouted the new arrival's name. All of them were Prince Posray's supporters. "Barum!" Posray gazed at the Frost Titan coldly. "I'll give you half an hour's time to rest. We'll battle when you've regained your stamina and returned to your best condition." "It's not necessary." Barum gave him a slight smile and said, "Go ahead, Prince Posray. You asked for it." Posre brazenly launched into the offensive. Boom! Two enormous beings instantly clashed against each other. There were no fancy moves, no splendor-filled magic. All there was just a simple and direct clash of physical strength. Wild and raging, tough and unyielding, crude and violent, every punch connected with flesh. They fought in a simple and rough manner. A smiling Meng Lei asked, "Which between the two do you think will win, Bubbles?" "Based on the hardiness of their bodies, the little guy from the Thunder Titans is significantly stronger. If all goes well, he'll win." Bubbles gave his evaluation of the situation. "What do the rest of you think?" Meng Lei then turned to Klaus and the other two. "My thoughts are more or less the same as Bubbles. The Thunder Titan slightly edges out his opponent." Both Klaus and Nadia agreed with Bubbles' views. "What do you think, Saija?" Meng Lei then turned to Saija. "I won't refute Bubbles' evaluation, Master, but I can't help but feel like something's not quite right with that Frost Titan." The Thunderbolt Queen's brows drew together slightly. "He's clearly a pure-blooded Frost Thunder Titan, but I can't help but feel like I can't put my finger on it. In any case, it feels rather odd." "Have you sensed it too?" Meng Lei asked with slight approval. "Something feels rather odd?" Somewhat astonished, Bubbles then stared straight at the Frost Titan. Suddenly, his eyes widened, and he exclaimed in a low voice, "That's the Demon Realm's aura. That little fellow is actually also giving off the Demon Realm's aura." "The Demon Realm's aura?" Klaus and Nadia were greatly astonished. To put it more accurately, it's the aura of the fallen demons, though extremely weak. An amused Meng Lei turned to Bubbles. "If I'm not wrong, that guy is probably just like you, and has also fallen from grace." "Hee hee. Little did I think that there'd be another pure-blooded Titan falling from grace after I did. This truly pleases me." A gloating Bubbles said, "It'll be quite the show if that kid is selected as the child of God." "Not necessarily." Meng Lei gave him a calm smile. "Not necessarily?" The fierce battle in the arena was still ongoing. As time went by, Posre, who had a stronger body, gradually took the upper hand and began to suppress Barum. On top of that, as the battle went on, his dominance over his opponent became more and more obvious. At the rate it was going, victory would definitely go to the Titan Prince, Posre. "Your Majesty, our son is about to win." A smile came over the Titan Queen's visage. "That fellow hasn't brought embarrassment to the imperial family after all." A look of gratification also adorned the Thunder Titan Emperor's visage. As long as he won the battle, his son Posre would become the new child of God. Not only would it bring honor to him as a father, but his son would also receive the Titan spiritual god's blessings and attain half-deification within 100 years. What a great honor that would be! And even more so, what a symbol of power that would be. As expected, His Royal Highness is no ordinary person. Just as everyone was sure that Prince Posre was about to win, Barum, who was initially being suppressed by Posre, suddenly erupted. A complete change from his previous disadvantageous position. He exhibited incredibly wild and raging strength, instantly seriously wounding Posre and reversing the flow of the battle. What? How can this be? What exactly is going on? The spectators were all rather stunned. Your Majesty, this? The Titan Queen and the Thunder Titan Emperor looked at each other, both somewhat incredulous. Only the aged, old High Priest's pupils suddenly contracted, a sharp glint flashing across the depths of his eyes. Boom! Barum took on an incredibly dominant stance, dishing out a few consecutive hard punches that directly blasted the stunned Posre out of the arena to achieve victory. This? The host was caught rather off guard. It was only when Barum came over that he finally regained his senses. Barum wins. You have lost. Barum cast a glance at Posre. Then he walked right up to the pillar, bowed and said, Greetings, Your Majesty, the Queen, and the High Priest. The Thunder Titan Emperor managed to barely form a hint of a smile as he said, Barum, who hails from the Frost Kingdom, congratulations on winning the champion title in this round of the Showdown before the gods. You flatter me, Your Majesty. Barum bowed slightly. The Thunder Titan Emperor turned to the Divine Temple's High Priest and said with a sigh, "High Priest, you may now announce the results of the Child of God selection." "Hold your horses, your Majesty." The High Priest got onto his feet, quivering as he did so. Then he overlooked Bahram, who was in the arena, from the top, and an incredibly sharp and keen look suddenly erupted in his aged, murky eyes. "Bahram, High Priest." Bahram hurriedly bowed. With a sharp look in his eyes, the old High Priest asked sternly, "Answer me as a Frost Titan. Why is there the aura of the devils on you?" Whoa! The moment the words left his mouth, a furor went through the entire venue. The Thunder Titan Emperor was so shocked that he rose to his feet at once. He took a look at the High Priest before turning back to Bahram, wondering if he had misheard. "High Priest, what do you mean by that? I don't understand what you're saying." A huge shudder went through Bahram, though he remained expressionless, presenting a front free of any turmoil. This old man's eyes may have deteriorated from old age, but they haven't gone so blind that they can no longer see. The old High Priest's words were like booming thunderclaps as he asked, "Have you turned to the devils and become completely fallen?" Turned to the devils? Having understood what he meant now, everyone turned to Bahram. Has Bahram actually fallen? How can that be? Is this a mistake? "I'm innocent, High Priest," Bahram quickly said. "May the High Priest look into the matter." "Humph! How dare you resort to fallacious arguments?" The old High Priest snorted coldly. Then he suddenly raised his aged palm and smacked it down. The palm strike contained incredible might that was as strong as a half-deity's strength. Should it strike him, wouldn't the pinnacle-level Saint Domain Bahram be smashed into smithereens? Damn it! Suddenly, an incredibly rich and dense black aura erupted from Bahram, whose eyes were widened to the point of splitting. The aura around him actually spiked all the way to a limits-level Saint Domain, and he met the strike with a punch of his own. Snap! As palm and punch connected, causing a thunderous explosion to erupt. Bahram was thrown out with a loud cry while the huge downward palm strike in the air was also instantly reduced to dust. What an evil aura! Blood stained the corners of Bahram's lips, and his breathing was weak and listless. Although the current Bahram was in a tragic state, an unholy black aura, much like billowing black smoke, was all around him. He's fallen. Bahram has actually really fallen. Everyone's countenances changed drastically, and they quickly retreated backward. What else do you have to say, Bahram? The old High Priest slammed his walking stick against the pillar and berated him furiously. As a descendant of the Titan gods, how can you stoop so low as to tarnish the Titan's bloodline and turn to the devils? You deserve death for that. Since you've discovered it, then what else can I say? Bahram snorted coldly and said, "Kill me if you want. What's the point of saying so much crap? Fine. I'll send you to your death then." With another cold snort, the old High Priest's palm went smacking down through the air again. The might of the strike this time wasn't just 10 times or 100 times more fearsome than the previous. "It's all over." Bahram closed his eyes in despair. "Ha ha ha, old High Priest Hyman. To think you're still so hot-tempered even after a separation of 10,000 years. What's going on?" The crowd let out exclamations of surprise. Then, a burly figure stood in front of Bahram and blocked him from further attacks while gazing cheerfully at the old High Priest on top of the pillar. "Who's he? Is that Bahram's friend? He actually dares to save him from the old High Priest? Isn't he a little too bold?" Alarm and doubts filled everyone. Bahram, who had originally lost all hope, also stared at the burly man in astonishment. He swore to God that he definitely didn't know that man. "You're Bubbles, the Black Bear King." The old High Priest stared at the newcomer for a while before he suddenly exclaimed, "Never would I have thought that you'd actually still be alive. How fortunate and lucky you are to have survived." "Bubbles? Who's Bubbles? Could it be that man? Do you know of him? It's that audacious rapist. Who doesn't know of his name? What the heck? To think it's actually him. Isn't he dead? Who knows? To think it's actually Bubbles." The Thunder Titan Emperor's eyes bore into Bubbles, his countenance awful-looking. He might not know who they were, had it been someone else, but how could he possibly not know who Bubbles the Black Bear King was? Because the Titan Emperor who had been cuckolded was exactly himself. Damn it! To think that knave is actually still alive. The Thunder Titan Emperor gnashed his teeth in a fury, wishing he could rip into Bubbles. He couldn't understand why Bubbles, who had been sentenced to death, was actually still alive. Moreover, judging from his mighty demeanor, he had actually become a half-deity too. Was the Titan spiritual god blind? Ha ha ha! Bubbles burst into loud laughter as he said, "How rare of the old high priest to actually still remember who I am. Bubbles, you renegade." The old high priest's eyes were sharp and fierce. "Instead of holing up in a dim ditch somewhere and dragging out your existence, what have you come all the way here for? Surely you can't possibly be thinking of taking revenge. You're mistaken, old high priest. I haven't returned to the Divine Titan Temple today for the sake of those old grudges that took place back then." Bubbles gestured to Barham with a slight smile and said, "It's a rare occasion for me to take a fancy to a junior who pleases my eyes. I hope the old high priest can spare his life on my account." "On your account? Who do you think you are?" The old high priest snorted. "Abandoning oneself to wallow in degeneration and tarnishing the Titan bloodline. This is a disgrace to the Titans that can only be cleansed with his blood. In that case, that means that the negotiation has broken down?" Bubbles' smile vanished. Then he said, "Let's fight, then. It's just as well that I take this opportunity to take a gander at your skills." "Humph!" The old high priest snorted. Then, as if an inflating balloon, he began to expand swiftly. His dry, shriveled-up skin became plump and supple. His skinny and withered body turned strong and muscular, and his head of white hair turned black. In the blink of an eye, he had transformed from an old and weak invalid, whose teeth had all dropped off and with one foot in the grave, into a strong and muscular Titan who was very much alive and kicking. Right on the heels of it, an incredibly wild, violent, and domineering aura erupted from the old high priest and swept in all directions. The spectators felt as if they had suffered a crushing blow and were almost flattened to the ground. D. With a furious roar, the old high priest's fist went smashing out. Snap! An enormous fist plummeted from the sky like a meteor and crashed toward Bubbles with a terrifying might capable of destroying everything. Under such fearsome might, all the spectators felt as if their insides were close to rupturing, and they almost died from fright. Should it crash into them, wouldn't it totally smash them into a bloody pulp? "Nice one!" With a serious look on his face, demonic aura surged around Bubbles, and he hurled his fist forward, meeting the attack head-on. Snap! Fist and fist collided, much like meteors crashing into each other. Terrifying energy waves instantly erupted and spread into the surroundings amid thunderous explosions. As though they were floating in the sky, the spectators were immediately thrown right out. Thud, thud, thud. The impact also knocked Bubbles back, and he took a few steps back on the arena, crushing the incredibly tough and solid arena into bits. "You've actually fallen, Bubbles." An incredibly furious roar rang out. The old high priest, who had risen into the air, glowered at Bubbles furiously, his eyes close to spitting flames. "Have you only just realized, old high priest?" replied a grinning Bubbles as he forcibly suppressed his churning blood and energy flow. "Bastard! This is unforgivable." The old high priest was livid. "You were a child of God back then, yet you've actually shut your eyes to the Titan spiritual god's might and dignity to willingly wallow in degeneration. Damn it! You deserve to die for that." He's fallen? Bubbles has also fallen? But he's the very last pure-blooded Dark Titan. What exactly has happened to him? The spectators couldn't quite accept the fact. They could accept Bubbles' rebellion and the coup d'etat he had staged. After all, the Titans revered strength and power, but they couldn't accept the falling of Titans. Titans were supposed to be noble, so how could they turn to the devils? D. The old high priest roared furiously into the sky. Then he descended from above, his gigantic foot brazenly stomping down toward Bubbles. "Good job coming here." With a low roar, The demonic aura emanating from Bubbles instantly withdrew back into his body, and his muscles bulged forcefully and significantly. Then, he threw out a punch and met the attack head-on. Boom! But this time, the old high priest's stomp wasn't just 10 times wilder and more violent than before. Bubbles' fist was kicked aside, upon which the huge foot then went along the impetus and stomped down forcefully on his chest. With a crisp snap, Bubbles was sent flying. Boom! He crashed onto the floor as blood spurted furiously from his mouth. With a tragic smile, he remarked, "I didn't expect that old fogey to be that strong. I've underestimated him." Just how strong was the old high priest exactly? That was something Bubbles didn't know. All he knew was that the old high priest was already the high priest in charge of managing the Divine Titan Temple even when he was little. Despite many years having gone by, the old high priest was still like what he had remembered him to be. Bubbles had initially thought that with his current prowess, he'd at least be able to somewhat rival the old high priest. Little did he expect that he'd be defeated with just a single move. This was truly, those above him were still above him after all. Degenerates like you that tarnish the Titan bloodline should all go straight to hell. The old high priest descended from above and stomped on Bubbles with one foot and Barham with the other. That terrifying might of his was like an elementary school student trying to kill a couple of toads by stomping on them. He's doomed. Nobody can save him anymore. That renegade who has willingly given in to degeneration deserves to be killed. Good job. People like that should be cut into 1,000,000 pieces and subjected to extreme punishment. The spectators were incredibly pumped up at the sight. In particular, the Thunder Titan Emperor was so worked up that he even almost jumped off his seat. If one must pick someone among everyone present here that hoped to see Bubbles dead the most, the honor would no doubt go to him. Only with Bubbles' death would the great disgrace to his father's name end completely. "Save me, master." Bubbles let out a shrill cry as he watched the gigantic foot stomp down toward him like a mountain crashing down. He didn't want to die here. Whoosh! A breeze blew across, and then someone appeared in front of Bubbles. Yet another person has popped up? Who's he? Does he have a death wish? Does Bubbles have other accomplices? The spectators were rather astounded at the sight of the newcomer who had suddenly come charging out. Then they began to sneer. They are just sending themselves to death's door, no matter who the one that comes is. Is the old high priest's strength something that they could even begin to fathom? Just as they thought that the newcomer was about to be stomped into a bloody pulp, he threw a punch and blasted the old high priest's gigantic foot. Thud, thud, thud. The old high priest stared at the newcomer with astonishment as he stumbled backward. What terrifying strength! To think he's actually on par with me. He's actually parried the blow. How can that be? The spectators were astonished. The Thunder Titan Emperor's eyes also bore into the newcomer. "Who are you?" asked the alarmed old high priest. "Weren't you just complimenting my good looks just now? Yet you don't recognize me anymore now? I'm that evil deity reincarnate whom you guys were discussing." The newcomer was Meng Lei. Meng Lei! The Thunder Titan Emperor shuddered all over and almost went limp onto the floor. The devil! It's that devil! He's actually come to the Titan Empire. Oh my god! You're that monster from the Dragon God Empire? The old high priest was rather astonished. Bingo! With his hands placed behind his back, a calm smile appeared on Meng Lei's countenance. The old high priest narrowed his eyes and barked fiercely. "To think it's actually you! Instead of staying in the Dragon God Empire, what have you come to the Titan Empire for? Since I'm here, then that naturally means that I have things to attend to here." Meng Lei rose into the air, his gaze sweeping across the Thunder Titan Emperor. He asked, "Titan Emperor, I heard that someone had offered a batch of chimeras to you as a tribute recently. Is this true?" The Thunder Titan Emperor was alarmed and fearful at Meng Lei's question. Although he desperately wanted to maintain his dignity and stateliness as an emperor, one's reputation didn't come with no reason, after all. He couldn't maintain it at all when facing a devil, an evil deity reincarnate like Meng Lei, who had slain the Dragon Emperor and slaughtered the Dragon Island Half-Deities. "Indeed it is. The Thunder Titan Emperor didn't dare to keep things a secret from him. Why are you asking about that? Meng Lei asked. Who's the one that offered the chimeras as a tribute? This hesitation appeared on the Thunder Titan Emperor's countenance. Meng Lei repeated, Who was it? It was I. A 300 feet tall Earth Titan with bronze-colored skin stepped forward at this point. With a demeanor that was neither lowly nor haughty, he said, It was I who offered a batch of chimeras to His Majesty as a tribute yesterday. Why are you asking about that? Since you're the one, then that makes things a lot easier. Meng Lei revealed a smile as he said, Hand over the riches you looted from the chimeras. That isn't something you should have. What do you mean by that, sir? The Earth Titan's countenance changed slightly as he asked, What do you mean by the chimera's riches? I don't know anything about it. You don't? In that case, you don't need to anymore. Meng Lei made a casual grabbing motion with a slight smile and easily caught the Earth Titan out of nowhere. Let go. Let go of me. The Earth Titan struggled fiercely as he shouted, Save me, Your Majesty! Save me, High Priest! How impudent! The old High Priest flew into a rage and threw a punch. You audacious demon! This is the Titan Empire. It's not a place where you can horse around. Meng Lei dodged the punch with a flash. He eyed the old High Priest and asked calmly, Old man, these are private matters between the two of us. Do you intend to interfere with this, too? Humph. Disregarding for now whether he's really taken the chimera's riches, so what even if he has? Do you think something that has already entered the Titan Empire's pockets can be given away for free like that? The old High Priest snorted. Youngster, this is the Titan Empire, not the Dragon God Empire. It's too early for you to be horsing around here. Great. Awesome. Meng Lei clapped his hands and smiled. This is the first time someone has acted so righteously despite having taken what belongs to me. I'm so gratified. Very much so. Get out of the Titan Empire at once, youngster. The old High Priest barked. Otherwise, this is where your final resting place will be. Is that so? Meng Lei couldn't help but smile. He was just feeling troubled over being unable to find an excuse to let loose a moment ago. Since they were so cooperative, wouldn't he be letting them down if he didn't? The old High Priest looked at him too, setting off sparks as they stared at each other in the eye. The spectators held their breaths in concentration. At this juncture, someone had guessed Meng Lei's identity correctly. From the Dragon God Empire, being referred to as a monster, other than the one from the rumors, who else? Oh, my great Titan spiritual god. He is that monster from the Dragon God Empire. Well, looking very young there. A 16-year-old wielding such power already. Wonder how he has cultivated. The spectators were buzzing. One's reputation didn't come with no reason, after all. Meng Lei's name was definitely the most sensational one in recent times. Slaying the Dragon God Empire's emperor. Massacring all court officials. Killing more than 1,000 saint domains. Wiping out half-deities of the Dragon Island. Any of these were horrifying on their own, and Meng Lei had done all of those. The fact that he had annihilated the entire elite class of the Dragon God Empire was unimaginable. Currently, this beast of a human was standing before them. Who would make light of it? What is he doing here in our Titan Empire? Here to destroy our empire? That would be too mad. Isn't it? Didn't you hear that he's here to demand the chimeras? The spectators whispered among themselves as they engaged in wild speculation. Meng Lei spoke. Old fella, when I first stepped foot onto Dragon Island, those half-deities were as domineering as you are here, but they ended up in the depths of the island forever. The old High Priest's voice boomed like thunder. Young one, this is the Titan Empire, not Dragon God Empire. And this old guy isn't any Dragon Island half-deity. The outcome will all be the same. Meng Lei shook his head slightly. Old High Priest, since you're the elder, I'll let you strike first in case anyone says that I'm bullying the elderly. How audacious! The old High Priest glared on as he blasted out a punch, while Meng Lei responded with a punch too. Snap! Both fists met like a thunderstruck. The violent blast waves swept across the vicinity, causing the Thunder Titan Emperor and the beautiful Titan Empress to fly off the pillars. Hurry! Hurry and leave this place. We can't stay here. The Thunder Titan Emperor was panicking as he pulled the Titan Empress heading afar, fearing their lives if they escaped too slowly. Most spectators escaped far away. They could watch a half-deity battle, but not that close. Otherwise, dying would be in vain. Hey kid, what are you doing? Bubbles kicked Barham and shouted, Do you have a death wish? Let's go then. Yes, sir. Barham reacted fast and left quickly after mumbling a thanks. The young nowadays. Bubbles shook his head and looked at the two figures in the sky with a heavy gaze. Can Master defeat the old high priest? Frankly speaking, he was not sure at all. Come again. After a punch, Meng Lei's blood started to boil as he initiated another attack. No god-slaying spear. No hammer of destruction. No blood-colored machete. No innate special ability. Just the simple and crude fists. Boom, boom, boom. The two figures kept on clashing and splitting. Even the sky was broken up for a short while, creating space-time rifts one after the other. While the two of them moved in between the rifts, the space-time rifts mercilessly sliced onto their bodies, giving the spectators goosebumps. If it were them, they would have been sliced into pieces by the space-time rifts. Yet Meng Lei and the old high priest completely ignored the ravaging rift's effects. So this is the power of a half-deity? The spectators were amazed. Boom, boom, boom. After some fierce rounds of fighting, both of them were tied without anyone having a clear advantage over the other. This old high priest is that strong? I knew the old high priest was very powerful. Didn't expect him to be this powerful. Rightly so. When my grandfather's grandfather's grandfather was in his infancy, the old high priest was already the Holy Temple's high priest. How is he not extraordinary? The power that the old high priest had displayed was unthinkable to the spectators. They had only known that the priest had become the Holy Temple's high priest from a really long time ago. Now that they had seen how mighty the old high priest was, they felt that they were seeing the sweeper monk who could step over Chao Feng of the north and beat up Murong of the south one. Boom! After another series of clashes, they stopped suddenly and looked at each other from a distance. Meng Lei seemed carefree in his robes, while the old high priest was calm and expressionless. You're pretty powerful, old man, Meng Lei praised. Indeed stronger than those half-deities of Dragon Island. They couldn't even last one round against me. It's rare and valuable for such a young man to have such power. The old high priest said coldly, Let me advise you one last time. The Titan Empire isn't the place for you to barge in and horse around. Leave immediately before you regret. Leave? Your Titan Empire hijacked my stuff, and you're still so stubborn. If I leave just like that, where do I hide my face? Meng Lei shook his head slightly. Old high priest, let me also advise you, hand over the riches of the chimeras, and I'll treat it like nothing has happened. Or else, I won't stop till you're dead. You're too presumptuous, young one, the old high priest roared. I had been merciful just now since you failed to appreciate such kindness. Don't blame me for being cruel. Wow, is this a coincidence? I held back too. Meng Lei smiled slightly. Then we'll see our true power. The old priest snorted coldly. Golden lightning bolts burst out around his body, and his black hair exploded outward while his aura skyrocketed. D. The old priest turned into a bolt of golden lightning and flashed before Meng Lei, as a fist shrouded in golden thunderbolt came crashing toward him. This punch was quick to the extreme, way faster than before. Yet, strangely it missed the target as Meng Lei vanished right before the old priest's eyes. Eh? The old priest exclaimed as he heard Meng Lei's voice from behind. Old fella. Forgot to tell you. My greatest strength was never my physique. The old high priest snorted and turned around to strike another punch, missing completely again. Too slow, old fella. Meng Lei appeared on the right mysteriously while holding a black war hammer. The divine weapon, Hammer of Destruction. Crack. Meng Lei swung the Hammer of Destruction at the old high priest's chin. With the crisp cracking sound, the old priest flew off instantly. Meng Lei followed like a shadow and appeared silently behind the old high priest for a second blow to the back of his head. Crack! The old high priest's skull cracked open instantly, and blood spurted out like a fountain. The poor old man could not even make a noise as he died instantly. Down you go, old fella! Meng Lei appeared above and stomped. Boom! The old high priest became a meteorite crashing deeply into the square, creating a huge hole as he stopped moving. How is the old high priest? Lost? Or dead? The spectators from afar sensed a chill down their spines, as they could not accept the result. The Thunder Titan Emperor, especially, who placed high hopes on the old high priest, almost broke down. Wasn't it evenly matched? How did he get killed in a blink of an eye? Seriously? The Titan Emperor started to panic, with Meng Lei's history in Dragon God Empire still vivid in one's mind. Even the scent of blood never left Meng Lei, who knew whether he would become senseless and sadistic and do the same to the Titan Empire. What to do? What should I do now? The Thunder Titan Emperor looked at the Earth Titan suddenly and felt like strangling him to death. This despicable Johannes! I will die because of you. Just then, Meng Lei looked over his side with a solid gaze. The Thunder Titan Emperor became stiff immediately and gave a smile that was worse than a crying face. To his surprise, Meng Lei did not even look at him. He was staring at the Earth Titan not too far from him. The Thunder Titan Emperor heaved a sigh of relief as Meng Lei grabbed the Earth Titan over from a distance. What do you want? Let go of me. Let me off now. The Earth Titan struggled desperately. What do I want? Don't you have any idea? Meng Lei's face was emotionless. Hand over the riches of the chimeras, and I can spare your dog life, or else you can look at what happened to that old fella. The Earth Titan could not resist glancing at the old high priest and was overwhelmed by terror. If the old high priest could be finished off with one hammer, then himself. I'll talk. I'll talk. The Earth Titan trembled. The wealth of the chimeras were hidden by me in the treasury of the great Earth Pillar Nation. If Sir wants, I can take them out for you now. No need. I'll get it myself. Meng Lei threw the hammer of destruction casually and blasted the Earth Titan's brains off instantly. The glaring eyes on the remaining face of the Earth Titan meant he could not die peacefully. He had already given the wealth of the chimeras, so why did Meng Lei still kill him? You're not a dog, so where's the dog life? Meng Lei looked at Klaus the Fire Dragon and said, Klaus, go to the great Earth Pillar Nation and bring all of the chimera's riches over. And of course patronize the treasury too. Yes, master. Klaus bowed to the orders and disappeared into the clouds. May everything go well. Meng Lei muttered as he grabbed the Thunder Titan Emperor over, which frightened the Emperor to death. He almost peed himself. Titan Emperor, tell me, how do we settle today's matters? Meng Lei said lightly, and anything you wished, sir. The Thunder Titan Emperor was trembling all over. Now that's the right attitude to settle anything, much more understanding than that old goat. Meng Lei was pleased with the Titan Emperor's attitude. I'm understanding? I'm just afraid that you'll kill me with one swing of that hammer. The Thunder Titan Emperor was cursing in his mind while putting up a grinning face. Whatever request that you have, sir, please let me know, and I'll do my best to satisfy them. My request is very simple. At that very moment, a wave of terrifying divine power blasted off from the divine Titan temple, sweeping all around the temple. Then a second wave, a third wave, a fourth one, a fifth, a sixth, no more or less, a total of 17 waves. God damn you, scoundrel. The 100-armed giant, this is. The spectators cast their gaze toward the divine Titan temple in disbelief. The Thunder Titan Emperor, Bubbles, Nadia, and Saija looked over as well and saw 17 towering figures standing above all. They were either showered in golden thunderbolts, stepping on blue hydras, or shrouded in black mist, donning on golden armor. They were like a glorious sun hung unyieldingly in the sky, emitting a mighty aura of the heavens. O Titan spiritual god, say 17 half-deities. Our empire has this many half-deities? Am I dreaming? The Thunder Titan Emperor was so excited that he almost jumped up, as he could not control his nerves. He was nearly frightened to death just now, But to his surprise, the half-deities of the Titan Empire came. 17 in one shot. How terrifying would their combined power be? Even if those Dragon Island half-deities were here, I guess they would have been shredded into pieces by our forefathers. The Thunder Titan Emperor thought with enthusiasm as he cast a glance at Meng Lei carefully and thought, "Scoundrel, I'll see how you die. Knave, you deserve to die." A half-deity titan who wore golden armor and looked exactly like the old high priest glared at Meng Lei. His eyes were breathing fire. He was the other divine incarnation of the old high priest. "Oh, so you still have your divine incarnation." Meng Lei seemed surprised, though he had expected it since he had not received any system notifications after killing the old high priest. Meng Lei knew that this old guy definitely had other divine incarnations and survived. Such insolence to come to Titan Empire and run riot here. You're really too full of yourself. A thunder titan showered in thunderbolts roared with his thunderous voice. Hazius! Upon the sight of this thunder titan, Bubbles' eyes became red as if he saw the murderer of his father and charged straight at him. "Oh, you're not dead, Bubbles." Thunder Titan Hazius shot a piercing look with eyes filled with rage. "That's fine, since I'll just kill you one more time today. I'll chop off your limbs, dig out your eyes and tongue, make you into a human swine, and throw you into the nastiest, dirtiest latrines in the world. I'll make sure you regret leaving that dim ditch, regret coming before me, regret not dying previously. Kill me? With just you?" Bubbles laughed coldly. "If it weren't for you being in the position of power back then, how could you have been my match? Today I shall avenge Acely." "Shut up, you traitor!" Hazius bellowed and charged at Bubbles rampantly. Bubbles did not back down and charged as well fearlessly. Boom! They clashed in an instant. "Let's strike." The remaining 16 half-deities dashed at Meng Lei and surrounded him. "Master!" Nadia and Saija were about to help in that situation when Meng Lei waved them off. "I don't need your help dealing with them." "But Master..." Both of them were quite worried. These are 16 Titan half-deities, not 16 Saint Domains. No matter how powerful you are, how can you fight them alone? They're just 16 old clowns. Meng Lei smiled faintly. "You guys stay still and watch my performance." How presumptuous! How ignorant! How arrogant! Upon hearing Meng Lei's words, the 16 Titans were enraged. They were the half-deities of the Titan Empire. When were they ever looked down on? That was going too far. "Stop blabbering. Let's attack." The old high priest bellowed deeply. "This scoundrel is very fast. We must be careful and cast our god's domain to take him down once and for all." "You're over-worrying, Priest Hyman," an Earth Titan said lightly. "With the 16 of us combining our powers, even a true god could not escape from our control, not to mention just one man here." "That's right." The other Titan half-deities agreed. "Never underestimate him," the old high priest snapped. "He killed my thunder elemental divine incarnation with 2 hammerings. If you all drop your guard, you'll surely suffer greatly." Upon hearing this, the 15 half-deities became apprehensive. Although Priest Hyman's thunder elemental divine incarnation was not the strongest of the divine temple, he could still easily be ranked in the top 5. Since 2 hammer swings had killed him, this knave's power could not be taken lightly. "Attack together," the old high priest bellowed. "God's domain." Buzz. 16 God's domains were cast, directly imprisoning the space around, and suppressed Meng Lei in great force together. "Stacking up your domains? That's quite extraordinary." Meng Lei licked his lips. "Well, but don't you think that so many of you ganging up on me is considered abuse? You scoundrel, how dare you mess around in our empire? You will not be missed when you die." The old high priest's murderous intent was clear. "Today you must die. No one can save you." "All right then. In that case, I have no reasons to hide." At the next moment, his heart started thumping violently, as if large bells and drums were ringing. Immediately right after, Meng Lei's blood vessels started to thicken. His blue veins popped out, and his muscles swelled. He was like an inflated balloon growing when the wind blew. 2 meters, 3 meters, 4 meters, 10 meters, 20 meters, 30 meters, 100 meters, 500 meters, 1,000 meters. Within a few breaths, Meng Lei had expanded to a height of 5,000 meters. At the same time, with both his arms as the center, huge lumps of flesh bulged out one after the other. Just as everyone was stunned by Meng Lei's transformation, those lumps were like seeds sprouting, as they grew rapidly into strong arms with intertwining muscles. For a while, Meng Lei's upper body was like a hedgehog, densely packed with countless burly arms. Oh, Titan spiritual god! What kind of monster is this? The 16 half-deities were dumbstruck. The spectators were dumbstruck. Even Bubbles and Hazius, who were fighting ferociously, stopped dead in their tracks and looked at Meng Lei with dazed expressions. How did Master B become? Nadia and Saija covered their mouths and were at a loss for words. Could this knave be a Titan as well? A half-deity Titan's mouth opened wide in surprise. But what the hell is this with so many arms? I don't know. Me neither. The half-deities shook their heads. Only the old high priest stared at Meng Lei as he spoke slowly. I'm afraid this is one of the forbidden Titan bloodlines. 100-armed giant. 100-armed giant? The various half-deities were shaken up. What? Although I don't quite get it, it sounds very powerful. It feels so powerful. Meng Lei stepped on thin air and sensed the fearsome power surging steadily through him. He could not help but let off a long moan. Currently, he was over 5,000 meters tall, no less inferior than the 16 Titan half-deities. The thing was that he had 100 more arms, which seemed so much more violent, overbearing, and terrifying. Everyone, sorry for keeping you all waiting. Meng Lei swept a glance across those half-deities and continued. Now, we can start the true battle. He held up 100 fists as he spoke and fired them with force. Amidst the loud collisions, the imprisoned space was smashed into pieces instantly. Meng Lei took a step and pulled away by over 1,000 meters and glanced over the 16 Titan half-deities. Now, everyone, I'm going to attack. Before he finished his sentence, he appeared in front of the old high priest and showered him with a series of punches. What does it mean when an inexperienced person defeats a master by throwing random punches, throwing out the rules of traditions? This is, 100 fists were like 100 cannonballs, all landing on the old high priest. The only sound that everyone could hear was the cracking sounds of broken bones as they watched the old high priest's body flying off with blood splattering all over the place. The body crashed into the square and stayed motionless. Everyone focused their attention there and could only see a bloody mess. He was smashed into a piece of meat mud, and his bones, internal organs, limbs were all crushed into unrecognizable flesh. Gasp! Everyone could not help but gasp, and a chill was sent up their spines. The formidable old high priest, an unfathomable stronghold as a Titan half-deity, could be beaten up into this state? That was way too insane. For a while, everyone's eyes were filled with terror at the sight of Meng Lei's towering figure. Master, is actually that terrifying? Bubbles swallowed his saliva as he thought, if he used that against me previously, I would have been. Bubbles shuddered, and fear thrilled through his veins. This feeling isn't too bad. Meng Lei gave the minced meat on the floor a glance and then looked at the rest of the 15 half-deities in excitement. Come on, everyone. Didn't you all want to gang up on me? Gang up? Now, who the F***CK is ganging up on who? Does he have any shame? Even though they almost vomited blood in their minds, at that moment, the Titan half-deities knew that they were at the point of no return. They could only fight till the bitter end. Kill! 15 Titan half-deities, 15,000-meter-tall giants all smashed toward Meng Lei almost at the same time. Good job coming here. Meng Lei laughed out loud as he did 15 things at once, controlling 6 separate fists to greet the Titans. For some time, 15 Titans clashed head-to-head. Boom, boom, boom. Bam, bam, bam. Crack, crack, crack. What was complete darkness? This was it. What was the sun and moon without light? This was it. Every single clash burst out frightening shockwaves. Every single sparring was the simple clash of raw strength. The sky was like a mirror broken into many pieces. The sky within the 1,000-meter radius became a tattered paste of black holes. Ha ha ha! That was thrilling. Come on. Hit harder. Aren't you all the so-called mighty titans with boundless strength? What was this meager power? Although he was being attacked from all sides by 15 Titan half-deities, Meng Lei's morale skyrocketed with superb momentum. He was dominating the Titan half-deities. Both sides had clashed for innumerable times, but Meng Lei's face was neither red nor panting, not even a scratch. On the other side, though, the 15 Titan half-deities were sweating profusely and wheezing like bulls. Especially their faces and arms were full of bloodstains, making their wounds apparent. Also, as the battle dragged on, the Titan half-deities' strength weakened rapidly along with their waning momentum. They were almost out of gas. Is that really a goddamn human? Monster. He's a total monster. The Titans self-destructs 15 against 1. They were obviously ganging up on the other party by outnumbering him. It was obviously very unfair to Meng Lei. It was also obviously a sure-win match. Yet the outcome caught one off guard. Meng Lei fought single-handedly against great numbers. Yet he simply overpowered the Titan half-deities. On top of that, the more he fought, the more valiant and wilder he became. Is that really a goddamn human? How can a human be that strong? A monster. He's a monster. The Thunder Titan Emperor felt chills all over him. He'd initially thought Meng Lei doomed for sure once the Grandmasters showed up, but who'd have thought that things would actually develop into a state such as this? Old dogs, is that all you've got? Meng Lei raised his head and guffawed into the sky. If that's all you've got, then all of you are destined to meet your ends today. Kill. Kill him. Use your divine techniques. After a series of clashes, the Titan half-deities could clearly feel the difference between Meng Lei's and their divine bodies. At once, they hurriedly retreated from the battle range and cast their divine techniques. Divine technique, divine wind of annihilation. Divine technique, judgment of life. Divine technique, meteor drop. Divine technique, absolute zero. Divine technique, ultimate alchemy. In an instant, more than 10 divine techniques rushed toward Meng Lei. Divine winds that could crush everything, wooden vines that could devour one's life force, meteors that could destroy the world. They bombarded Meng Lei as if wanting to rip him into shreds, smash him into a bloody pulp, freeze him into an ice sculpture, or transmute him into gold. Boom! At the same time, a destructive wave of power of divinity also reverberated through the surroundings, instantly sweeping through the entire mountain peak and throwing out the spectators once again. When the lingering waves finally dispersed, the Titan half-deities and spectators hastily looked over. However, Meng Lei was nowhere in sight. He had vanished into thin air as though he had never been there in the first place. Is he dead? One of the spectators' eyes widened. Someone replied uncertainly, he's probably dead? Who would be able to survive those divine technique attacks capable of destroying everything? The Titan half-deities didn't let down their guard in the least, because they knew very well that Meng Lei hadn't died. In fact, their attacks just now hadn't struck him at all. Additionally, even if the attacks really had struck him, considering the degree of durability that Meng Lei had exhibited with his divine body, it was impossible for him to have been blasted into smithereens and not even a single broken piece of himself left behind anyway. Suddenly, an elderly Titan half-deity shouted, "Look out! Everyone! Look out!" Would there even be any use to doing that? Meng Lei appeared right in front of the elderly Titan half-deity out of the blue and dished out a series of 100 machine gun-like punches, his little fists bombarding the half-deity wildly. Ha! For a while there, sad, shrill cries that sounded like the wailing of vengeful spirits from hell rang out all the way up into the clouds, causing everyone's scalps to go numb and chills to run down their spines. What would it feel like to be bombarded by that many punches? Would it hurt very badly? Hurt? The elderly Titan, currently being subjected to the little fists pounding, was the clearest on how it felt. Every punch of Meng Lei's carried vast, enormous force capable of devastating everything, and every single punch rendered him dizzy and woozy. As 100 little punches came smashing toward him like a raging storm, the elderly Titan half-deity felt as if every single part of his body was hurting. His face, neck, arms, chest, bones, pain, pain, pain. It was even more painful than going into labor. At last, when all the pain and agony finally ceased, the elderly Titan also went flying out. All everyone could see was just a pile of minced meat. The elderly Titan had also ended up the same way as Hymen, the old high priest, smashed into bits. Is he dead? Yet another Grandmaster has died? Fear and trepidation filled the spectators. Was there even anything that could possibly be more astounding than personally witnessing a half-deity being pounded into minced meat? Not at all. Nothing could be even more astounding than that. Why? Why is he so strong? The Thunder Titan Emperor murmured to himself. By this point, he could already tell that Meng Lei wasn't battling at all. Rather, he was fooling around. That's right. He was fooling around. If he wanted to, Meng Lei could kill any of the Grandmasters anytime, anywhere. Yet he had refrained from doing so, choosing instead to play a game of cat and mouse. He was toying with the Grandmasters. The Titan half-deities could also sense it. As fury welled up within them, they also felt a deep sense of helplessness at the same time. How were they supposed to fight when that knave was so strong? He's actually still alive. The moment Meng Lei noticed that no system notifications had come in despite him killing the elderly Titan, he knew right away that the old Coot also had another divine incarnation. Meng Lei couldn't help but turn toward the remaining 14 half-deities. True enough, he discovered a half-deity that looked identical to the elderly Titan from before among them. You've actually killed my wind elemental divine incarnation. The elderly Titan half-deity was so furious that even his eyes had turned red. Do you know how much effort and energy I exhausted and how much hard work I had put in before I had successfully forged that divine incarnation? And now it's gone. All gone. The elderly Titan half-deity had gone totally berserk. Knave, you've completely cut off my path to deification and caused my tens of thousands of years of cultivation to go up in smoke. I want you dead. Dead. The Titan half-deity charged right up to Meng Lei. His blood and energy flow surged and churned around him, and then he suddenly exploded. Boom! As though a 1,000 megaton hydrogen bomb going off, the elderly Titan half-deity instantly blew up into a cloud of bloody mist. Waves of incredibly destructive power spread into the surroundings, instantly engulfing Meng Lei before continuing to engulf the rest of the place. Elder Frank. Aghast, the remaining 13 half-deities hastily darted into the distance. A half-deity's self-destruction carried a terrifying level of destructiveness. Even they would perish for sure if they were to be caught up in it. The wild, violent energy waves engulfed the summit, the divine Titan temple, as well as the 10,000 feet tall Titan spiritual god statue. As for the spectators that had fled into the distance, none of them were spared, either. All of them were also engulfed. A light breeze blew, gradually dispersing the smoke and dust pervading the air and once again revealing the square. The divine Titan temple was gone, while the place had been reduced to rubble. The 10,000 feet tall Titan spiritual god had also collapsed and was lying on its side on the ground. Why did you have to go so far, Elder Frank? The 13 Titan half-deities floated in mid-air in the distance, all of them rather filled with grief and lament. At the same time, the spectators who were fortunate enough to survive also looked toward the area with expressions of fear and horror. They had clearly already been a great distance away, yet the greater half of them had still died from the explosion. They practically couldn't get any unluckier than that. Cough, cough. Is that knave dead? The Thunder Titan Emperor was also one of the lucky survivors. The current him looked extremely worse for the wear. His clothes were torn and tattered, and he was covered in blood after suffering grievous injuries. He didn't have the leisure to pay much attention to that, however. His eyes were fixed on the other side, urgently wanting to know whether or not Meng Lei was dead. That was what he was the most concerned about at the moment. Where's that knave? I don't know. Just how fearsome is the destructiveness resulting from Elder Frank's self-destruction. That knave was even right in the epicenter of the explosion, too. There would practically be no justice in this world if he could survive even that. That makes sense. What a shame about Elder Frank, though. The Titan half-deities were terribly mournful. Elder Frank was the oldest and most senior half-deity among them. Many of them had received his guidance in the past. Upon seeing Elder Frank end up like that, how could they not be heartbroken? Bubbles, your partner in crime is dead. Hasius' eyes bore coldly into Bubbles, a hint of brutality coming over them. He said, "And now it's your turn. Don't worry. I won't kill you so easily." Dead. As if he were staring at a fool. Bubbles broke into a grin and said, "You're overthinking things, Hasius." "What do you mean?" Hasius' countenance darkened. "Master strength is something far beyond your imagination." Bubbles smiled proudly and said, "Attacks of that scale earlier can't hurt Master." "Bubbles, you overestimate his abilities." Hasius let out an icy snort and said, "Elder Frank is a pinnacle-level half-deity. How powerful do you think his divine body was? No one in Heaven's Vault continent can be spared from his self-sacrificing move of self-destruction." Heaven's Vault continent? Bubbles let out a scornful and derisive laugh. Just as he was about to mock him mercilessly, he suddenly spied someone coming toward him in the distance. Right away, he broke into a grin and said, "Open your goddamn eyes wide and take a good look, Hasius. Who do you think that is?" A puzzled Hasius turned around, only to become thunderstruck right away. He froze up and stammered, "He isn't dead." As if he would be. Bubbles seized the opportunity to throw a punch at Hasius. Unable to duck in time, Hasius was hit on the chin. Dizziness came over him at once as the blood and energy flow in his body churned. Upon successfully striking him, Bubbles' attacks became even more fervent. They engulfed Hasius like a raging storm as every attack landed on him. "You bastard!" Hasius was shocked and furious. But what frightened him even more was Menglay himself. Menglay was actually still alive. In fact, he was completely unscathed. Even his clothes and hair were still neat and tidy. How can this be? Wasn't he in the center of the explosion? Hasius couldn't understand how that had happened at all. The Titan half-deities were just as confused as him. They stared at Menglay, who had reappeared before their eyes, as though they were staring at a ghost. Never mind the fact that he was still alive, but what was up with him being completely unscathed? "Sorry to disappoint all of you." Menglay had a mocking expression on his visage. He had already resumed his human form by this point and was even currently holding a fried meatball skewer in his hand. How exactly did you manage to do that?" A Titan half-deity clenched his fists, his countenance full of indignation and disbelief. "Because I can teleport." With a slight smile, Menglay said, "I took that little pocket of time just now to go to a restaurant in the city and even bought a meatball skewer. It actually tastes pretty good." Menglay waved the meatball skewer in his hand lightly as he spoke. Then he began to eat it with relish. Teleport. The Titan half-deities fell silent at once. At the same time, while hopelessness filled them, a thought also arose in their minds. What a freak! Menglay was no different from a freak in their eyes. Not only did he possess such a monstrous divine body, but he could even teleport. How were they supposed to goddamn fight someone like that? It shouldn't go that far even if he were cheating. All right, now that the meatballs are gone, it's about time this battle should end. 2. Menglay polished off the last meatball and casually tossed the bamboo skewer aside. Then, he brought out a handkerchief and wiped his hands before he asked, "I'll ask you guys something now. Do you wish to live, or do you wish to die?" The 13 Titan half-deities shouted in a low voice, "What exactly do you want?" "It's very simple." In a calm and peaceful tone of voice, Menglay replied, "If you wish to live, then hand over your divine spirit origin energy and submit to me. If you wish to die, then go to hell like those 2 old fogies just now. How dare you humiliate us, you knave!" A storm Titan half-deity flew into a rage. The noble titans never submit to anyone. Neither will we become anyone's slaves, even if we should die in battle. Go to hell then. The god-slaying spear abruptly appeared and instantly pierced through the storm titan half-deity's forehead before shooting out from the other side and killing him. Elder Enoch. The other titan half-deities cried out in shock and grief. Their eyes widened so largely that the edges were close to splitting. Elder Enoch, who had been well and alive just a moment ago, had died just like that? Noble? How laughable! In the face of death, nobody is any nobler than anyone else. Meng Lei held the god-slaying spear, which blood dripped off the tip of, and said, "It's impossible for anyone to avoid death or die in a unique manner just because they're nobler than others. You're the devil himself." The titan half-deities glared furiously at Meng Lei, their hatred shooting through the roof. If eyes could kill, Meng Lei would have been ripped into a million pieces a long time ago. "It's your turns now." Meng Lei flung away the blood on the god-slaying spear and said calmly, "This is your last chance. Once you miss it, it'll be gone for life." This time, all the remaining titan half-deities fell silent. All of their previous toughness and hard, unyielding stances were gone. What remained was just endless fury, humiliation, and indignation. "What? Have all of you become mute?" Meng Lei's gaze swept across all of them, a cold glint flashing in his eyes. A thunder titan glared at him and asked, "Aren't you afraid that the titan spiritual god would mete out divine punishment for brutally killing the titan half-deities like that?" The other titan half-deities' eyes lit up upon hearing what he'd said. As though they just managed to clutch their lifeline, all of them began to roar. Against someone like Meng Lei, who was even more ruthless and merciless than a devil, they were completely powerless to fight back. The only thing they had left to rely on now was the Titan spiritual god. Hopefully, the Titan spiritual god's name could daunt Meng Lei and deter him from any further killing. The Titan spiritual god? Sorry, but I know more about him than all of you. Meng Lei couldn't help but laugh. Indeed, he's certainly incredibly strong and powerful and could rival an intermediate deity at their pinnacle. But unfortunately, he poses no threat to me in Heaven's Vault continent. Do you know why? The Titan half-deities had only silence in response to that. It's because the Titan spiritual god doesn't cultivate laws of nature. Instead, he only cultivates his divine body. Even if he were to send a divinity projection here, it wouldn't possess much combat power at all. Meng Lei chuckled softly as he shook his head. True gods were unable to personally descend upon Heaven's Vault continent with their actual bodies. All they could do was to send a divinity projection, yet divinity projections could only utilize a half-deity's level of strength. As for a concrete idea of how well they could utilize it, this would depend on the true god's comprehension of laws of nature. The stronger their comprehension of laws of nature, the more fearsome the divinity projection's combat power would be. Conversely, the weaker their comprehension of laws of nature, the weaker the divinity projection's combat power would be. Theoretically, only a great perfection true god's divinity projection would be able to unleash a limits-level half-deity's level of combat power. Normal higher deities and intermediate deities' divinity projections would be even weaker. This was also the reason why Heaven's Vault continent had gone through 5 different eras. Whenever social unrest broke out, various half-deities would seize the opportunity to emerge and fight for power of faith, because they knew that there was nothing the true gods could do about them, as long as they continued to hide within Heaven's Vault continent. That was how the Beast God and the Dragon God had emerged as forces. Upon hearing Meng Lei's response, the Titan half-deities were both alarmed and panicked. What alarmed them was how Meng Lei actually knew the Titan spiritual god like the back of his hand, while what sent them into a panic was the fact that the Titan spiritual god's name hadn't daunted Meng Lei at all. What were they to do now? Don't place hope in the Titan spiritual god coming to save you. You're bound to be disappointed. Meng Lei shook his head lightly. He might even be watching this right now. Meng Lei's guess was on the mark. Concealed in a hidden dimension beyond Heaven's Vault continent was a wide and spacious divine nation. Vast, majestic divine might rippled as power of divinity surged in the divine nation. Songs and prayers rang out constantly as though Buddhist chants in Sanskrit. Seated inside a big, tall, and extravagant temple was a burly figure who was as tall as 100,000 meters. His muscles were harder and firmer than even rocks. His head was bigger than even a mountain peak. His hair was as though gigantic towering trees. The air that he exhaled was as swift as lightning. He was the deity whom billions of Titan Empire citizens worshipped, the Titan spiritual god. That lowly mortal, the Titan spiritual god, was terribly infuriated at the moment. In fact, he was livid. Never would he have thought that a lowly and cheap mortal would actually dare to challenge his reign. The furious Titan spiritual god bellowed, "Is anyone there? My respects to the great Titan spiritual god." Two burly, golden-armored figures holding golden spears came into the hall. The Titan spiritual god barked, "Summon Horus!" "Yes, great spiritual god." Before long, a small and skinny figure shrouded in a black robe arrived at the temple. Upon getting onto his knees, he said, "My respects to the great spiritual god, Horus. I command you to descend upon heaven's vault continent and erase a lowly mortal." The Titan spiritual god said coldly, "You're a heaven's vault continent native. Moreover, it hasn't been 10,000 years since your deification. Thus, the will of heaven's vault continent's existential plane will not resist your presence, thereby allowing you to descend upon the continent with your real body. Your wish is my command." The small, skinny figure bowed in the undertaking. The Titan spiritual god watched as Horus departed from the hall. His voice was icy cold as he said, "Lowly mortal, you shall pay a heavy price for your foolishness and ignorance. Now, tell me your choices." Meng Lei was getting rather impatient. The Ocean Titan half-deity bellowed indignantly, "Sir, do you really intend to kill every last one of us?" Meng Lei's eyes gradually turned icy as he asked coldly, "I'll ask this one last time, death or submission?" The Titan half-deities fell into silence once again. You simply refuse to be convinced until reality hits you in the face, don't you? At the sight, Meng Lei let out a cold snort. He couldn't be bothered to say any more, deciding instead to kill. Splurt, splurt, splurt. He activated his teleportation ability, coming and going like a ghost. The divine spear was sharp and keen, capable of destroying everything in the world. As though falling stars, the Titan half-deities began to crash onto the ground one by one a moment later. "Spare me. I'm willing to submit now. I'll submit. I'll submit. It's too late." The remaining Titan half-deities turned pale with fear and started to plead for mercy. But Meng Lei didn't give them a second chance. The god-slaying spear launched a series of successive jabs and ended their lives. Boom, boom, boom. Over 10 dead bodies fell from the sky and crashed onto the summit, causing great explosions. For a moment there, Meng Lei was the only one standing proudly in the sky, the divine spear in his hand and as though a god. Dead? Are they all dead? Are all the grandmasters dead? The dazed survivors stared at Meng Lei, their bodies turning cold and chills coming over them. A single human and a single spear had decimated 16 half-deities. Was he really human? The devil. He was the devil himself. It's over. All over. The Thunder Titan Emperor was dazed and dejected as if he had lost all strength. He knew the Titan Empire had become a goner. With all the half-deity grandmasters wiped out, the Titan Empire would never be able to make a comeback. Master is really too powerful. Nadia and Saija gazed at the figure in the sky, their beautiful eyes brimming with feelings of astoundment and worship. In this instant, they suddenly felt like submitting to Meng Lei wasn't that bad of a decision. After all, how could hiding in the underground world even compare to being a follower of such a powerhouse? Did you see that, Hasius? Those old coots are all dead. Who will be able to save you today? Bubbles burst into loud laughter. Then, he pressed Hasius down and started to pummel him madly. He had already had the upper hand in the first place, and added to this how Hasius had personally witnessed the tragic annihilation of the Titan half-deities, resulting in him becoming utterly stunned and dazed. How could Hasius possibly be Bubbles' match? A series of clashes later, the more Bubbles fought, the more raging he became. On the other hand, the heavily wounded Hasius was completely held down to the ground as Bubbles gave him a good thrashing. Die, Hasius! As though a crazed demon, Bubbles smashed his fists into Hasius fervently and haphazardly. Hasius' wounds became more serious until he finally collapsed onto the ground, unable to get up anymore. Yet Bubbles didn't let him off. The ultimate outcome was that there was now another pile of bloody pulp on the ground. Wheeze, Bubbles sat on Hasius, who was now a mess of bloody pulp, in a straddle, panting heavily. The humiliation and hatred that he'd harbored for years finally found their release at this moment, and the 5,000-meter-tall big guy actually burst into loud, racking sobs like a child. Aisley, my beloved, it's been 18,459 years. I finally avenged you today. Sob. The howling, chilly wind blew across the hills, producing a series of low, deep howls. Titan's spiritual peak summit was frighteningly quiet. Only Bubbles' sobbing resounded throughout the summit. Meng Lei didn't interrupt Bubbles, allowing him to vent all the fury and pain in him. Instead, he turned and flew toward the Titan spiritual god statue. What rich power of faith! If I can absorb all of it. Meng Lei licked his lips, a hint of white-hot fervency flashing across his eyes. Power of faith was good stuff. It could strengthen one's divine spirit and refine one's power of faith. One could call it an all-nourishing elixir. The only troublesome part was that Meng Lei still hadn't lit up his divine fire yet. Thus, he lacked the tool to convert power of faith into power of divinity. As a result, his efficiency in refining power of divinity would definitely be very low. Without a divine fire, I can only use this power of faith to strengthen my divine spirit. Meng Lei released his divine cognition and wrapped the statue in it. Then, he began to absorb the power of faith. For a while, Meng Lei could feel an extremely pleasant feeling coming from the depths of his divine spirit. His entire self also, in turn, felt exceptionally comfortable, as if he was soaking in a hot spring. Kid, it feels great, right? Dodola's voice rang out in his mind. Yeah, it feels awesome. Awesome is right. This is exactly what makes the power of faith so amazing. A chuckling Dodola said, So, work hard and fight for those power of faith. The more worshippers you gain, the deeper you'll be able to experience the power of faith's benefits. Got it. Meng Lei replied calmly. Then Dodola said, By the way, come to the Tower of Time when you're done with absorbing the power of faith. That precious daughter of yours has run out of food supplies again. Come in and get her some food. She's eaten all of them? Even though there were so many of them. Meng Lei was rather stunned. One must know that he had summoned tens of thousands of devils and stored them all on the 96th level. Tens of thousands of them. This was by no means a small number, yet she had finished them all? Duh, of course. Dodola rolled its eyes. She's a half-deity level fallen angel. Her appetite is voracious. Those devils that you summoned are all low-level goods. They won't fill her up at all. Won't fill her up? Meng Lei was rendered rather speechless. Dodola urged, Hurry up. Don't keep her waiting for too long. Understood. After responding to Dodola, Meng Lei then continued to absorb the power of faith. Envy filled Nadia and Saija's eyes, though no one dared to interrupt him. Power of faith might be great, but they didn't have the guts to fight for food with their master. Half an hour later, Meng Lei finally absorbed all the power of faith in the statue into his sea of consciousness so that it could slowly nourish his divine spirit, thereby strengthening it. It feels really good having my divine spirit wrapped in power of faith. Meng Lei was somewhat in a state of revelry. No wonder it's said that power of faith is just like drugs. Once you have a taste of it, you can't get away from it anymore. Our forebears kid me not. Meng Lei shook his head with a smile. Then, he casually grabbed the Thunder Titan Emperor. Thunder Titan Emperor. Let's continue our previous conversation. Feel free to state your demands, sir. I'll definitely try my best to satisfy them. Scared witless, the Thunder Titan Emperor's dignity and stateliness as a sovereign was completely gone. I heard that the Titan Empire's treasury has a collection of numerous rare and unique treasures in the world. I'd like very much to go in and have a look. I wonder if your majesty can satisfy my request, asked Meng Lei. Of course. I'll satisfy your request for sure. The Thunder Titan Emperor hastily nodded, lest Meng Lei smack him dead if he responded even a moment too slow. He said, "You can go in for a look any time you want." "Great,"